We are the Newsroom team. Yes, it's Kendall Makamate. I was president myself, Evan Jansen. A very good morning to you. We are broadcasting to you live from our studios here in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. A very good morning to you. If you've just joined us, of course, don't forget, we are live on YouTube as well. You can watch us via the streaming facility there at any time in the world. Now, today here in South Africa, of course, the big story is around, well, proposed occupation of the ruling ANC's headquarters here at Luthuli House in Johannesburg. This is the question we ask you. How do you view the Occupy Luthuli House protest that is scheduled? We'll be live there shortly, as I'm sure you've seen on all the other shows before us. We've been, giving periodic updates as to this specific protest that is taking place here in Johannesburg today. Lots of other news happening. Very, very busy day. We've got G20 and a whole host of other scenarios playing out. So let's go to the news desk with Elvis Presley.
The Occupy Luthuli House movement says it will still deliver their memorandum to the ANC headquarters at Luthuli House in Johannesburg, despite the march being called off after reportedly receiving threats. South Africa and BRICS are pushing for policy between developed and developing nations. And the pre-trial court hearing of Christopher Panayiotou and his 3 co-accused commences this morning at the Port Elizabeth High Court. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out. Makamate, what's happening on the sports front? A very good morning to you, Kendall.
Gentlemen, good morning. It's been a so-so weekend. A lot happening out of the US Open. Nothing else in rugby, but we're waiting for next weekend. I'll tell you what, it's actually this morning, we woke up this morning to interesting news coming out of the US Open, and here it is. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in terms of the sports today. The US Open was left buzzing this morning as Frenchman Luca Pouille knocked a resurgent and firm favourite Rafael Nadal out of the tournament.
Luca Pouille has done the unthinkable in taking out his first ever top 5 opponent.
The 2 Mercedes on the attack. Rosberg makes a good start, and Hamilton's been left behind. Vettel moves up as well.
Nico Rosberg pounced on a bad start by Hamilton to race into the lead and a victory at the Italian Formula One Grand Prix.
How are we going to sort the scoring problem? We created more than 10 chances this evening. More than 10. More than 10. We went on to miss a penalty.
Bafana coach Sheikh Mashaba digs his heels in after a failed campaign to qualify for AFCON 2017, bemoaning Bafana's inability to score. Now, all this and more we've got for you later on in the sports bulletin, but for now, it's back to Elvis, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour. As you know, police are out in full force at Luthuli House in the Johannesburg CBD. Let's now cross live to our reporter, Griselda Lewis, who was just outside Luthuli House. A very good morning to you, Griselda. And can you tell us what is going on right there, right now? Griselda, can you hear me? Well, it looks like we haven't got that link up and running there yet. As you know, that protest is happening today outside Luthuli House, and we'd like to find out what is the latest there. The hashtag Occupy Luthuli House movement says it will still deliver their memorandum to the ANC. Out in Johannesburg in the CBD there today, despite the march being called off. And we'd like to bring you an update on that as soon as possible, as soon as we establish our link with our reporter Griselda Lewis in the CBD. Right now, South Africa and BRICS are pushing for better policy coordination between developed and developing countries. Now, this is in a bid to combat inequality and underdevelopment. The push for a new economic growth path is gaining momentum. But the gap between the rich and the poor, developed and developing nations, is widening.
Hangzhou, a city dubbed Paradise on Earth. Here, the world's biggest economies are meeting. For some, it's been a long journey as they prepare to exit the world stage. For others, stepping into uncharted territory, it's about creating a new economic global order to revive the world economy.
The G20 should honor its commitment of not adopting new protectionist measures, strengthen coordination and cooperation on investment policies, take credible steps to stimulate trade growth. Infrastructure connectivity should be enhanced so as to bring developing countries and small and medium-sized companies into the global value chain and make the global economy more open and integrated.
Yet, behind the smiles, waves and handshakes, there is a silent acknowledgement of the widening economic gap and decline in the global economy. Representing Africa, President Zuma did not shy away from confronting these issues.
We welcome, in particular, the fact that China has placed development in Africa as a key priority of its G20 presidency. This strategic focus bodes well for concretizing the support that the G20 could bring to Africa's development and industrialization. Importantly, industrialization is at the heart of Africa's development agenda.
While economic talk dominates, other issues are also being discussed. Terrorism, conflict and tensions in Europe. A smaller grouping of BRICS countries met on the sidelines. What emerged is the need for a new economic path to ensure the poor are not left behind. The message here is that while countries devise new strategies and innovations to create new growth for the global economy, they must not impose further burden on the less developed by resorting to protectionism and inward-looking policies. Mzwandile Mbeje, SABC News, Hangzhou, China.
Now we'll bring you an update on that story unfolding right now in China with Mzwandile Mbeje a little bit later to give us the latest. But right now, a story that we wanted to cover earlier. Let's see if our reporter is ready in the Johannesburg CBD. Griselda Lewis, who's just outside Luthuli House. Griselda, very good morning to you and welcome. I hope that you can hear us now. Give us an update as to what is transpiring there right now.
Well, welcome back live outside the ANC's headquarters here in the Johannesburg CBD, where some protesters have arrived here now. But these are not supporters who are joining the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House campaigners. These members of the ANC say they are here to support President Jacob Zuma. You'd recall, of course, that one of the demands of this campaign, of the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House campaign, is for President Jacob Zuma to resign, as well as the entire National Executive Committee. Now, these members of the ANC have come all the way from the Free State and are saying they're here to support the ANC and also defend Luthuli House as well. Let's chat to some of the protesters who are here with us this morning. Putwam, Wena, you're coming from the Free State, I understand. I understand you're here to protest, but you're not part of the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House campaigners. You're here to support President Jacob Zuma.
Yes, they are here to support my president because today is March here at Luthuli House. Now. They are here, they come from Free State to support my president. Yes.
So you're saying President Jacob Zuma must not step down. You want he must complete his term.
That's why I want to because it's a mistake. President Thabo Mbeki, ne? And re bona ntho e le gore la etsala for President Thabo Mbeki. E etsala gore President e le mo sta gona gore ka te term ya teng wa re bona go support gore term ya e be fele.
Essentially what we're seeing here at the moment, Elvis, is that instead of the protesters that we were expecting this morning from the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House campaign, we're actually seeing protesters here who are protesting in support of the ANC president and the president of the country. They're saying that many more protesters or supporters in this regard are going to come here to defend Luthuli House. They're saying that they do not want the National Executive Committee to step down, and are saying that it was uncalled for those who are calling for President Jacob Zuma and the executive to resign. They're saying that these are internal matters which need to be addressed within the structures of the African National Congress. You can see there, undeterred by some of the organizers of that campaign, they're saying they're going to protest and show their support outside the headquarters of the ANC. Let me see if I can't speak to one of the other gentlemen as well. If we could ask our camera person just to pan this way a bit. Butuame, wena namhlanje uzokwenzani la namhlanje?
It's something like Kito protect the Luthuli House. I'm here to protect the President Jacob Zuma. Yeah.
All right. But Suge Free State, what are your thoughts on the protest action that was scheduled to take place here today? There are those who are calling for President Jacob Zuma to resign, as well as the National Executive Committee. What are your thoughts on that protest?
Come again?
What are your thoughts on that protest, those who are calling for President Jacob Zuma to resign?
Who are them?
There are those who are calling for President Jacob Zuma to resign. Okay. You are saying you are here to protect Luthuli House. What are your thoughts on those protests by those members of the ANC?
The perpetrators. Ke bona ba ntse ba protect the white monopoly capital happening in South Africa, including DA and EFF.
All right, essentially, that's the sentiment that is being shared here as these supporters of the ANC move towards the front entrance of Luthuli House. They're saying they're here to protect the headquarters of the ANC. They do not want President Jacob Zuma to resign, saying that those who are calling for that, as one of the people that I spoke to says, they're perpetrators and defenders of white monopoly. They're now heading right towards the entrance here. But strangely enough there, Elvis, the expectation here this morning was that there'd be members from that campaign, the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House, that were expected to come here. But there's absolutely no sign of them here this morning. You can also see that the MK veterans are also manning. They continue to man the entrance of the headquarters here in the Johannesburg CBD. A lot of vetting taking place before you enter the building here as well. Also, what remains to be seen at this point is whether the weekly meeting of the ANC, which usually takes place on a Monday, will actually go ahead at this point. You can see the MK veterans are pushing us to move away from the entrance here at the moment. They're really not allowing anyone past this line that they've created at this point, and are ensuring that even these who say they are supporters of the ANC and do not want this march to go ahead, they're saying that they're going to remain here throughout the day to ensure that they protect the Luthuli House, as they say. But the police presence as well, we're being told to turn away at this point. We're being pushed. Sir, can you not push me at this point? We're trying to do our jobs. So essentially this is what the issue is here in front of the ANC headquarters at this time. The media also being told to move away from the entrance of the ANC headquarters here. But no sign of those protesters that were scheduled to march as early as 8 o'clock this morning. And the organizers are saying that they were threatened by some of the state machinery, as they indicate, and are refusing to say at this point who exactly threatened them, also claiming that the South African Police Service had also turned away some of the buses from the other provinces of ANC members who were scheduled to come and protest outside here, of course, calling for, amongst other things, the Fees Commission to be disbanded, saying it's not in line with the resolutions taken by the African National Congress. We'll certainly bring you a lot more from here, and whether that memorandum of demands will be handed over outside here, the entrance at Luthuli House, certainly still remains to be seen, but absolutely no sign at this stage of any of the protesters who were scheduled to embark on that action, calling for President Jacob Zuma to resign. We're moving again to the other side of the building at the moment, and the strong police presence does remain outside the building at this point. We'll wait to hear from the organizers of the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House campaign on what their way forward is at the moment. And I think of great concern at this point is whether there would be perhaps a clash between these supporters of the ANC who are saying that this campaign should not go ahead, the demonstration or the march which was scheduled to take place should not go ahead. But police certainly seem to have their hands tied at this stage, trying to ensure that perhaps when the group of the campaigners who've been saying that they want to occupy Luthuli House, that perhaps there isn't a clash between these two. Just to show you a bit this direction in terms of the Metro Police and how they are now moving the traffic from the main entrance, this main street here, just at Luthuli House, how they're moving traffic, trying to redirect traffic.
That's our reporter, Griselda Lewis, in the Johannesburg CBD. As you can see, the picture just broke there, giving us the latest there. She's in the thick of the protest. And the question that was asked is, who are they? Well, do you know? We're asking you that question this morning. How do you view the Occupy Luthuli House protest? There's a hashtag there, Occupy Luthuli House. So let us know on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on our Facebook page. And if you like us there, you become part and parcel of the informed. But right now, it's time to take a look at our topic of the day. I mean, it's all about sexting. Let's cross over to Eben Janssen. Well, we'll take a look at what Eben has got to say for us. But remember, we'll keep you updated on the protest in the CBD. As soon as we get that link up again, we'll find out from our reporters there on the scene what is happening, and we'll take it from there. And the question, of course, that we pose to you is, what do you make of this entire protest of the Occupy Luthuli House? Let's now cross over to Eben Janssen with our theme for the day.
Yeah, very good morning to you if you've just joined us. Of course, today, well, we're focusing on something a little bit different, your life, or our lives online. How many times have you looked at your phone today already? Scrolled through your Facebook as a voyeur of other people's lives? Flicked through Instagram just to look at nice images of travel, fails, video clips, or nothing in particular for that matter? You do it, yet you don't understand why. Let's take a look at what one man thinks about where humanity is heading.
Did you know the average person spends 4 years of his life looking down at his cell phone? Kinda ironic, ain't it? How these touch screens can make us lose touch. But it's no wonder in a world filled with iMacs, iPads, and iPhones, so many eyes, so many selfies, not enough us's and we's. See, technology has made us more selfish and separate than ever. Because while it claims to connect us, connection has gotten no better. And let me express first, Mr. Zuckerberg, not to be rude, but you should reclassify Facebook to what it is, an anti-social network. Because while we may have big friend lists, so many of us are friendless all alone. Because friendships are more broken than the screens on our very phones. We sit at home on our computers measuring self-worth by numbers of followers and likes. Ignoring those who actually love us, it seems we'd rather write an angry post than talk to someone who might actually hug us. Am I bugging? You tell me, cause I asked a friend the other day, let's meet up face to face. They said, all right, what time you wanna Skype? I responded with OMG, SRS, and then a bunch of SMHs, and realized, what about me? Do I not have the patience to have conversation without abbreviation? This is the generation of media overstimulation. Chats have been reduced to snaps. The news is 140 characters. Videos are 6 seconds at high speed. And you wonder why ADD is on the rise faster than 4G LTE. But get a load of this. Studies show the attention span of the average adult today is 1 second lower than that of a goldfish. So if you're one of the few people or aquatic animals that have yet to click off or close this video, congratulations. Let me finish by saying you do have a choice, yes. But this one, my friends, we cannot autocorrect. We must do it ourselves. Take control or be controlled, make a decision. Me? No longer do I want to spoil a precious moment by recording it with a phone. I'm just gonna keep them. I don't want to take a picture of all my meals anymore. I'm just gonna eat them. I don't want the new app, the new software, or the new update. And if I want to post an old photo, who says I have to wait until Thursday? I'm so tired of performing in the pageantry of vanity and conforming to this accepted form of digital insanity. Call me crazy, but I imagine a world where we smile when we have low batteries. Cause that'll mean we'll be one bar closer to humanity.
Wow. Yeah, we wake up, check our Facebook, our Instagram, take a morning selfie, snap a picture of our healthy breakfast or coffee, and some of us even send nudes to interested candidates for fun these days, creating a life online, mirroring what is real and tweaking or adjusting our lives to look more appealing to our onlookers or fans or followers, whatever it is. All this is creating a shift in society. There's a new normal emerging. However, studies have shown that prolonged screen time causes things like obesity and depression. Now, to talk a little bit more about this, we've got a digital expert with us. She's the program director at Digify Africa, Sherry Ginoreva. Very good morning to you, Sherry. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
You saw the clip. What do you think to what do you say to that?
I mean, there's plenty of truth to it. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I'm personally a victim myself. I wake up and check my Facebook, my Instagram, just to see what I missed over the period of 8 hours. And that's the way we're living these days, and it just sort of is what it is. But I do think that there are pros and cons to it all, and I'm hoping that's what we'll be here to discuss today.
Yeah, let's talk about the migration first, because there is an online migration happening, and in a way all of us have created a replica of ourselves, as it were, online. Is that undoubtedly the next step for humanity?
I think that's naturally where we are going, but at the same time, you have to think about it. As human beings, we like to communicate. We need to communicate. We've been doing that far before technology ever even existed in its current form. Yeah. So these levels of social media, television in its former day, or to an extent radio, newspapers, art, even before all of that, were only ways for human beings to communicate with each other. So we as people haven't changed that much. Essentially, we just now have the tools to do it a little bit better and a lot quicker as well.
But does that serve us, this new communication process? Because we see it there, we see it in our own lives, is that, yes, you communicate with more people, but you actually see many, many less people, and you have many less real relationships.
Well, that depends on how you define relationships, isn't it? I mean, you now have an opportunity to connect with people all over the world. You don't have to be confined to your immediate area. The beauty of technology is that you can also build new business opportunities, new opportunities for yourselves to become a personality online. People are actually making a lot of money from these things as well. So, I mean, while, yes, maybe to some degree it causes narcissism, it causes obesity, depression to some degree, those who are doing it well well and who understand the benefits of it can actually, sort of use it as a great way to live and build their own livelihoods as well.
Is that the new normal? That's what we have to accept?
I think so. And I think, like I said, as people, normally we have been communicating. So yes, now that we have these tools to do so, to an extent it is the new normal. And I don't think it's going to get any better. I don't think it's going to change. There'll be new ways for us to communicate. The whole idea of technology innovation is to make our lives easier. And that's exactly, sort of what has led to its growth over the past few years.
That's the pros, and that's good, but there are cons. Let's talk about the selfie, for instance. We see people on screen now taking that picture of themselves. Some people take 10 a day. It's it kind of taps into our favorite sin, which is vanity. But I want to talk to you about the rise of narcissism and what that is and how that plays up. How does that play out, do you think, in society?
Well, it's funny you say that. If you read the traditional definition of narcissism and you look at what's happening now, it's very similar, right? But no one wants to be labeled a narcissist per se. But imagine this. I mean, you have, take a cell phone, take every bit of technology away, and we're just sitting watching television. The rise of reality TV has been massive, not only for television companies who are able to produce very cheap, inexpensive forms of programming that people love. It's the idea of being able to peep into the lives of someone else. So not only are you able on social media to peep into someone else's life, you're able to actually create that as well and show how amazing your life is. Very seldom will you see a selfie where someone looks horrible.
a lot of people fake it. I mean, I saw people taking pictures, being all dressed up on a red carpet, saying they're at the music awards when, there's a Johannesburg Tower sticking out the back in the photograph. So they've been well caught by that. But I wanted to ask you about the new normal a little bit, because the new normal comes with a whole host of scenarios. The one is how easily it's become for people to share nude images of themselves. We had a case here in South Africa in the media last week where a mother accidentally posted some nude pictures of herself on a mum's hockey group, for instance, and it caused quite a stir. Is that the new normal, sharing nude pictures of yourself just like that?
Well, I don't think in that case she meant to. It's just unfortunate that she had a bit of a mishap with her phone. Now you have cameras. You have an opportunity. If she wanted to take a nude photo and send it to her husband, for instance, that's her business. It's unfortunate that maybe she accidentally shared it with a larger group. So I think we have to look at, is that the new norm? Are most people sharing nude photos of themselves? No. I mean, I do think you have a few instances where people are, but that's what happens when you put a camera in the hands of everyone and a huge network of people to share it with. The key for me is to teach people to understand how to use these tools well. Digital literacy is so key to all of it, because this is becoming the new normal.
What is next for us then?
I think what's next for us, I think there are two things. I think on one end, you're going to always have a counterculture. Don't be surprised if over the next few years you see people who don't want to expose themselves online, who are fine with very simple phones that don't have 1,000 different apps on them. People who really like to go into private clubs. You have a number of private spaces that don't have Wi-Fi and purposely ask you not to post images, because people want those moments where you don't feel compelled to constantly share. And I think that'll be quite interesting to watch over the next few years.
How that develops. Sherry,
absolutely.
Very interesting discussion. That's our theme today. We'll continue with this discussion. We've got a couple of interesting guests coming in a little bit later. I will talk about things like sexting and virtual reality and all these kinds of things. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
That's Sherry Zinoreva. She's the Program Director at Digify Africa. And we're talking about life online, your life online, a life online. All of our lives seem to be moving online a little bit, and it looks fabulous online. Of course, the reality often is not exactly the same. But let's take a look now at what's news on social media at this hour. Of course, lots of trends from the weekend. It seems that the most topical story of the last week was the hair debacle and debate. It's, of course, the alleged racism that was taking place at Pretoria Girls High School. It continued over the weekend. It was also followed by Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan. Yes, everybody wants to know if he's guilty of anything or if it's a political ploy. Internationally, in international news, the usual Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, as well as terrorism in the leads. Over SpaceX, Mother Teresa being canonized as a saint, and Apple taxes snuck in at the back as other topics of interest, as you can see on screen. Right now, at this hour, the hashtag to follow is Occupy Luthuli House. Yeah, we brought you a comprehensive update through Kusalda Roost. Protesters, well, already outside, rallying outside Luthuli House this morning. The campaign leaders, though, they've called off the march, which was set to take place due to fears of violence. Now, we saw a lot of protectors of Luthuli House there. The campaign, of course, Occupy Luthuli House, calling on the president and the top six of the ANC to step down from their position. Now, we can confirm there's still a heavy police presence in the city centre, in and around Luthuli House. In international news, the hashtag Mother Teresa, who was canonized by the Vatican yesterday for all the great work she did with the poor in India. Now she's officially a saint. And I'll just take a look at this picture. It's one of the crowd at St. Peter's Square. I think it might be the next picture. Do we have that? Yeah, is that it? Yeah, there you have it. That was the ceremony that took place here over the weekend. Of course, the other one that's in the news internationally is the hashtag London is burning, or London's burning. A recreation of the Great London Fire drew crowds last night. A giant wooden replica of a 17th century London was set ablaze on the River Thames in a retelling of the Great Fire of the great city 350 years ago. The inferno in 1666 raged for 4 days, destroying most of the city, which was then, of course, largely made of wood. And then, for all the lovers of all the single ladies, singer Beyonce, it was her birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Beyonce. Hope it's another busy year for you. Let's take a look now at your comments on today's proceedings at the Luthuli House. We've also asked a question, but this one comes from Yoli. It says, if I was in the ANC, I wouldn't participate in the Occupy Luthuli House march. That is, shows ill discipline that usually comes back to haunt you, says Yoli. Kings, Queens Rising. I wasn't going to work, according to me. Hashtag Occupy Luthuli House. And Sweet Tea talks about, I hope those disgruntled cadres protest peacefully, because with the SAPS at the scene, we might see a Marikana reload. Well, Sweet Tea, we can report it's rather peaceful. Burning Spear says, if I were in the ANC leadership, I'd say let the Occupy Luthuli House marchers in. Make them rooibos tea. Let's listen to them. There's a very tolerant view of the entire proceeding. Well, those are some of your views with regards to the protest. Of course, we asked the question today: how do you view the Occupy Luthuli House protest that's underway right now in the city centre here in Johannesburg? Send us your views, of course, at SABC Newsroom, even on our Facebook page. We put it up periodically throughout the show. I'm sure there'll be some interesting ones coming up today. Let's take a look now at our picture of the day. This one comes from Gizmodo. Yes, we're talking about gizmos and technology and the like. Today, life online, life on your phone really is what it's becoming now. There's a report, this Samsung it is. They are to issue unprecedented recalls of the new Note 7 amid explosion fears. Yes, the phones are exploding. Don't leave them on charge overnight. They'll explode and burn the house down, I'm told. Yeah, that's a real danger. So that's what we're looking at today, of course. Your life online. All of our lives are online right now. Let's take a look now at our comment of the day. Of course, we saw the canonization of Mother Teresa, Saint Teresa it should be now. This one from James Martin, who says, Mother Teresa will be canonized for good reason, for the best reason, because she lived a life of outstanding holiness. Go and do likewise. She advises all of us. Very difficult, but she lived a life in service of the poor. That's something we should all think about. Now, let's take a look at what's in the courts here in South Africa. Yes, it's still Monday morning. We start in Port Elizabeth with the sensational trial, the pre-trial court hearing of Christopher Panayiotou and his 3 co-accused will commence today in the PE High Court. Panayiotou, of course, is alleged to be the mastermind behind the abduction and murder of his wife Jade in April of last year. How time flies. Then in the Northern Cape, the suspect in the murder of a 6-year-old boy, William Dacre, whose body was found by a passerby near the railway tracks close to the town of De Aar, is expected to appear in court in the small town for his bail application. Now, 36-year-old Gordon Bester was allegedly the boyfriend of the deceased boy's sister. Then, down in the Western Cape, 10 suspects. They are expected to appear in the Mitchells Plains Magistrates Court near Cape Town for allegedly dealing in drugs. They were arrested this weekend in 2 separate incidents in Beacon Valley. 4 of them, between the ages of 20 and 46, were arrested after packets of heroin with an approximate street value of around 23,000 rand were discovered in a house in the area. 6 others were arrested for the possession of 20 packets of dacha. 39,000 rand in cash was also confiscated. That's what's in the courts around the country today. We'll keep you updated how some of those stories develop. Shortly, we'll be down in Port Elizabeth for a quick update on what's happening with the Panayiotou case. Don't go away. We'll be with you after a short break, and send us your tweets with regards to the Occupy Luthuli House protest. We'll be back shortly.
News Today provide news updates giving a wealth of knowledge. Breaking stories and crossing live for you. We follow business developments intensely. Experts and analysts tackle all challenging issues for you. We cover stories locally and abroad to keep you informed. We cover all sporting codes just for you. We are sure to give you weather to be ready for the day. Stay tuned to News Today at 3 p.m. from Monday to Friday on SABC News.
Welcome back with Newsroom here on SABC News. Now, we're dealing with your life online today. Have you ever sent a nude picture to someone? Anyone? Well, some studies suggest that in the new world today, 24% of high school-aged teens, that's ages 14 to 17, and 33% of college-age students, that's ages 18 to 24, have been involved in some form of nude, what they call nude sexting. As every aspect of our lives begins to be now mirrored on a digital platform, it is no wonder that we are exploring our sex lives online as well. Now, from taking sexy pictures and sending nudes to spice up a relationship, we also seem to be exploring other forms of sexuality in the digital space. But what does this mean for the younger generation, especially since children as young as 3 years old are becoming slaves to the screen? Joining us now from our Sea Point studio is a PhD candidate in criminology at the University of Cape Town, Melissa Meyer. Very good morning to you, Melissa. And you doing, well, you're looking at sexting in particular. Tell us, is that becoming quite normal now to be sexting and sending nude pictures?
Morning, Eben. Yes, it is becoming more normal, but something that my research has found, which mirrors a lot of other research that's been going around, that's been very prominent, is showing that sexting is not new behavior. You know, since the very first naked cave painting, you know, people have always been drawn to romance and sex, and the only thing that makes sexting different is that it's been given a new and somewhat more public platform, and that's actually the only difference. So yes, it is becoming normal because we are adapting to technology.
And it's not just amongst young people, yeah? It's amongst all ages, it seems, that this phenomenon is growing.
Yes. My research has found that amongst university-age students, it is the highest. In fact, that my study that had more than 400 UCT students filling quite detailed questionnaires found that more than half of them actually had not only sexted but sent a nude or semi-nude image, which is significant, which is huge. Just again showing how normal it's become, and they even said themselves that they see it as normal behavior and even healthy in relationships. Now,
in the new social media world, women, are they feeling a little bit more safer and freer in the online world, and therefore they engage much easier in this kind of behavior?
What was interesting is that a lot of the literature suggested that women are much more cautious and critical of sexting, and you know, men were more likely to be into it or even pressure women into doing it, as reflected to the societal double standard, as it's known. And even though a lot of students think that this is the reality, in fact, the experiences and the perceptions of sexters, there's practically no gender difference, which was also a very interesting finding in my research, and also in recent research by Murray Lee, a prominent Australian researcher into sexting, saying that, you know, there's a lot of gender differences, you know, going around that people think exist, but they just don't. So yes, a lot of women are drawn to sexting because there's no risk of pregnancy or STIs or being physically pressured into sex, you know, over a phone. Any moment she can decide, okay, you know, she doesn't feel comfortable and just switch off the phone. It's as easy as that.
What about the safety of young people? I'm talking those at risk, children, underaged women, underaged boys. What about this? Should they? How do we protect them from this kind of thing? It seems very difficult.
Yes, it is difficult, and mostly because they are uneducated. This is something that I'm personally working towards with my own research. I'm working with various NGOs to try and reach out to schools to get a message of safe sexting across to them that I strongly feel needs to be incorporated into the normal sex education that's going on in schools. Young kids, this is happening. There's no resisting it. There's no denying it. You know, research has shown that abstinence-only sex education just does not work, and it's the same with sexting. Children need to be taught, you know, what red flags to look out for, when to ask for help. They need to know their own rights, when they can say no, you know, and that somebody else needs to respect this. You know, this is especially very important when it comes to consent. For instance, it is illegal if someone sends you a picture to show that to someone else. That is completely illegal, no matter what the age is.
I wanted to ask you about that. Sorry to cut into your word. I wanted to ask you about that specifically because is it illegal to show a picture on your phone of someone else who's nude? Because we see the thing about revenge porn, the moves afoot to make it illegal here in South Africa. Is it illegal to show a picture on your phone of somebody being in the nude? And furthermore, what do you view of making revenge porn illegal?
Revenge porn is illegal, as far as I know. It's illegal in a lot of countries, even though the laws are catching up. But if cases do pop up, I find that the courts do you know, see the case in an isolated manner and usually do follow up on these kind of cases. It is illegal. It is illegal if a message is shared in a consensual manner and that person breaks the trust and shows it to someone else because they are not the legal owner of that picture. The person who created it is. That is from a legal standpoint. Also, sharing, non-consensual sharing, that is now like sending the photo around that was sent to you or showing it to your friends or even taking screenshots, as we saw in the Van Wyk case. That is seen as a malicious act with the intent to harm, to bully, to humiliate, and to embarrass, which is why it is illegal. And the problem is people don't know this. They don't know it's illegal, especially school children. They think that if they have this image on their on their phone that it's sent to them, they think they own it and they can do what they want, and that's just not true.
Thank you for joining us, Melissa. Wonderful to talk to you. It's really, really interesting, the kind of stuff you shared with us. A lot of people don't know about this, but they engage in it every day. That's Melissa Meyer. She's a PhD candidate at the University of Cape Town, and she focuses her work on sexting, revenge pornography, and all the things that we see in the news of late. Now, Elvis, of course, we're talking today a little bit about what's happening at the Thule House. Still quite quiet there, all things considered, isn't it?
Well, quiet in a sense that people are dancing. So we'll have to find out a little bit later from our reporter, Griselda Lewis, as to the latest from the Thule House. We'll keep our viewers updated, so you don't want to go away. You don't want to move anywhere. This is where it's happening. Now, remember that we're also asking you today, how do you view the Occupy the Thule House protest? Let me take a look at what you have to say. You can do so on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. Let's take a look if some of those live tweets are coming through and see what you have to say. This one coming from Maloto that says, ANC must listen to its members and voters, otherwise 2019 will be tough, says Maloto Mabatimela. Jean-Claude says, Occupy the Thule House protest sign of the ANC bankruptcy. ANC is expressing discontent with disconnected leadership of the movement. And Seatles says, I have a right to protest when I have a concern to confront them. It is not a good idea, says Seatles. Well, these are some of the live tweets coming through, and we'll keep you updated and we'll read them as we continue during the course of the program. But let's now take a look at what is happening on our Facebook page. Starting off with the Western Cape Department of Education, will meet with the learners of San Suu Kyi Girls High School in Cape Town and their parents today in an attempt to resolve issues of alleged discrimination and racism. Then, a study of a Ugandan woman found that 72 out of 744 HIV-positive women surveyed had been sterilized, and 20 of them had been forced to undergo the procedure, or it had happened without their consent. And then finally, the global economy is being threatened by rising protectionism and risk from highly leveraged financial markets. And then Chinese President Xi Jinping said at the opening of the G20 summit, that's what's currently happening at the G20. We'll also keep you updated on that story as it unfolds. Now, you can find all of these stories and more on our Facebook page and our SABC News website. Let's now take a look at the front pages from the newspapers from around the globe, and we start off in New York. The Big Apple, the International Times there says, or reports rather, that Pope St. Francis declared Mother Teresa to be a Roman Catholic saint, and visitors to the Vatican City shared their admiration of her after the canonization. Look at that picture there. Moving to China, the South China Morning Post says that President Xi Jinping warned that his South Korean counterpart, Park Geun-hye, today that regional tension would worsen if China's opposition to the deployment of the U.S. development anti-missile system was not handled properly. And finally, in Europe, the Times reports that Theresa May ruled out a points-based system for the EU migrants as she left open the possibility that they may have preferential rights to live and work in Britain after Brexit. Migration point system will not work, so says May. That's the front page of the Times. Well, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back after that. You don't want to miss a thing.
If you look at artists, they've got one of the abilities to either form new conversations, they can paint a picture of a country, they can paint a picture of a mindset of a country.
The Cape Town-based ballet dancer recently won at the 2016 and 2017 Rolex Mentor and Prodigy Arts Initiative.
South African hip-hop right now is sitting at a level where it's Ngudu, Yippee and Roll Up. When you put them all in one room, you actually have like the ultimate super South African fan.
And you're watching Trends, do not go anywhere, stay right there. Catch Trends for that 1 hour weekly dose of arts and entertainment news every Saturday from 12 to 1.
Now, we've been talking about sexting, as well as social media, but it's been described as the next biggest thing since the development of the internet, and that is virtual reality, which is set to propel humankind to the next level of innovation. Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg says that virtual reality will be the most social platform that ever existed. But does the platform also pose dangers for humanity? As the new version of getting up close and personal doesn't even need to involve a real person like you and me. That's thanks to technology. However, it also has many advantages, some say, as the world bodies begin to adapt to using this platform to deal with conflicts. Joining us now in studio is the creative director at Bizarre Reality, Anthony Eva. Anthony, a very good morning to you and welcome.
As well.
First and foremostly, tell me about virtual reality. What is it all about?
So virtual reality is a complete immersive experience. So what's powerful about virtual reality is that the cell phone in your pocket is a virtual reality device. Mm-hmm. So you put into a hardware device like the Google Cardboard, and you're able to now go into virtual reality and experience how it is to be in Tokyo, right in your backyard. So that is what virtual reality is about. And you can also create simulations through virtual reality.
Now, there's a common misperception that augmented virtual reality are identical. What is the difference between the two?
So augmented reality and virtual reality. So augmented reality is adding to the world around us. So it's adding digital information to us, and you're partially immersed in this environment. So it's still our reality. Where virtual reality, you're completely immersed. So you're in a completely virtual environment.
I see.
To give an example, if you have a look at a blueprint of an architecture design, you take your phone, you scan it, a 3D model can appear out of that. That would be augmented reality.
You are kidding me.
Promise. So then if you click on that, and we'll go into virtual reality. So now you can actually be inside that building as if you were there.
Yes.
So that's virtual reality versus augmented reality.
Are we pioneering it here in South Africa?
Yes, definitely. Specifically in the architecture industry, we've definitely come up with a couple of new innovations. Bizarre Reality has actually come up with the first augmented reality to virtual reality content management system, which is a whole lot of words, but basically it's a communication tool that we've developed here in South Africa.
Now, we've seen augmented reality become a concept that almost anyone can understand through the popular Pokemon game. Is that the sort of thing that we're looking at, and can it only be used for gaming, or is there more that can be used for it?
So Pokemon Go has created a lot of awareness for augmented reality and a lot of adoption, so we're very pleased to see that about that. But essentially, it's not just for gaming. As I just said, it could also be utilized in architecture. It's been utilized in education. It's been utilized in massive industries. Fighter jet pilots have been using it for years now. And so it is a technology that's been utilized, but just not been breached to the surface yet as it is now.
I'm very excited about this virtual reality because I would like to, for instance, redo my office, and I would like to see a picture before I do it, because normally you would have to physically do it in order to change, in order to see it at the end. But this, with virtual reality, you can actually do that now.
Yeah, we actually do that. So
unbelievable. Mark Zuckerberg said that this is the next biggest thing since the internet. Tell us more about that. Why does he say that, and do you concur with that?
Yeah, so virtual reality is definitely something that is going to take over the world. Social networks are definitely making a big push in it. If you look at Facebook now, you can take 360 photos, videos, and post it onto Facebook. But I believe augmented reality, virtual reality, and the Internet of Things is going to be all put together and to create to be really cohesive and create the next big thing. Google's bet their money in both sides of the party, so no one really knows. But I think it's a cohesion of all three of them together.
Now, this morning we were talking about sexting and sex, all things about sex online. But one virtual reality innovation that currently exists is the sex suit, I believe. Tell me more about this. And this is creating quite a stir because we will no longer be able to, we won't no longer be able to need someone to be with us with this particular sex suit. Tell us about this.
Sure. So, virtual reality does have that extra ability for it, but essentially, I believe that virtual reality is not going to. Technology is evolving, right?
Yes.
And so is humans. We're definitely on the same path, intertwined. But people still crave human interaction. So a good way to look at it is look at your cell phone. Yes, we're all on our phones, yet we're having a conversation right now. Why would we not just have this over the phone rather? It's because we crave human interaction. And so I think there's virtual reality assists, but not as much.
Another thing that we would like to talk about is that the UN is currently discussing ways and to see how virtual reality can assist them with serious matters. And I'm not too sure if you know about this and how does it help in security situations, for instance, in the world.
Yeah, sure. So I was actually lucky enough to be part of the United Nations International Media Seminar, where they were talking mainly about the peace in the Middle East with the Palestine-Israeli conflict. And essentially what virtual reality does is, if I tell you a story, you interpret it with your mind and you imagine it, right? But in virtual reality, you experience the story. So your conscious is the medium. So now I can experience how it is to be in someone else's shoes and have their perspective instead of just my perspective. So now I'm combining the two to try and come up with a resolution, and that's how United Nations has been utilizing it. We also were in discussions about how ethics could be implemented in virtual reality.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but this is such an interesting discussion. We need some more time on this, but thank you so much for coming through and joining us. Now, that was Anthony Eva, the creative director at Bizarre Reality. By the way, here in South Africa, we are at the forefront of this virtual reality, and they are doing it. We'll take a break right now. We'll be back at the top of the hour. Stay tuned.
Now this is Trends, of course, your one-stop serving of all that's juicy and trending in the world of entertainment and showbiz. My name, of course, is Refill Wemwilo.
I'm Dr. Sello Mutaung, and this is Our Talk.
A very good morning and welcome to Media Monitor. I'm your host, Alicia Jolly.
My name is Dumila Matters.
William Mulabati.
My name is Mpo. What time is it? It's question time.
For your daily dose of current affairs, tune in to the SABC News Channel.
No, they haven't.
Do you know why?
Well, we didn't know. Firstly, we'll ask.
I can tell you.
Why?
They say you're selling out.
Why?
Well, I guess that's a question you need to engage them.
Why would the African Union try and separate human rights and women's rights?
Women's rights are indeed human rights.
So we need to be asking ourselves, what kind of society are we? What kind of family structures do we have where fathers turn on their daughters?
If a policeman, is seen to be accessing psychological services, couldn't that be seen as a sign of weakness?
People are waiting for somebody to discover them.
Absolutely.
And that's not everybody's story, am I right? I mean, there's so many of us who can be the best and stars, but you can't sit there and wait for somebody to say, I think what you're doing is great.
Which are so different to his past.
I really wish I could say thanks to him. And man, I'm the man. I make coffee and I'm proud of it.
For your daily dose of current affairs, tune in to the SABC News Channel.
We are the Newsroom team. A very good morning to you if you've just joined us. Just gone after, 3 minutes after 10 o'clock as we come to you with the next hour. We'll be on air until midday today. That is around 12 o'clock, bringing you all the latest updates from all around the country. Of course, our focus today is pretty much what's happening at the Thule House. Let's just take a live picture and show you what is happening outside the Thule House. That's the picture. That's the picture from the CBD in Johannesburg, Elvis.
Yes, that's the CBD there, and as you can see, Mkonto overseas where combatants standing outside, as well as lots of activity earlier. There's also a Nyala standing on the side. Lots of people there earlier. We found out from a report in a short while what is the state of play currently in the CBD.
As many journalists as protesters at the moment. But let's take a look. Let's just take a look at the question we've asked you today, of course. The question we've asked you today with regards to the Luthuli House is, what do you think of it? Or what is your view? And we've got quite a few views coming in, Elvis.
This one from Lhasa Molo says that the ANC must respect the masses, otherwise 2019 elections will be very much interesting. That's one from Lhasa there.
Guguleto says the group will not attain the aspirations. It's a waste of time. ANC leadership said Zuma is going nowhere. That's according to Guguleto.
Well, as you know, they want the grouping that is called for the president to step down, as well as the top 6. That is Occupy Luthuli House, hashtag Occupy Luthuli House. This one from Lhasa. Butler Molo says the ANC should learn to say, I'm sorry, and fix their problems. Otherwise, 2019, the ANC will be history. Amen. That's ZB.
And this one from Moloto says, Newsroom, the ANC must listen to its members and voters. Otherwise, 2019 will be tough. Those are some of your views coming in right now on the question of the day. We showed you the picture there shortly. A lot of news, lots of other news happening. The president himself is at the G20 summit in China. We will give you a little update around that a bit later. But let's get the news with us.
The hashtag Occupy Luthuli House movement says it will still deliver their memorandum to the ANC headquarters at Luthuli House in Johannesburg, despite the march being called off. This after they've been reportedly receiving threats. South Africa and BRICS are pushing for policy between developed and developing nations. And then the pre-trial court hearing of Christopher Panayiotou and his 3 co-accused commences this morning at the Port Elizabeth High Court, and we'll bring you the latest on that one as well. Now, those are some of your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Gentlemen, good morning. We're looking forward to a massive sporting week. We're in the middle of the US Open right now, quite a lot happening there. And I get ahead of myself once again, as I do on Monday mornings. Good morning to you. This is what we have for you in the sports today. The US Open was left buzzing this morning as Frenchman Luca Pouille knocked the resurgent and firm favourite Rafa Nadal out of the tournament.
Luca Pouille has done the unthinkable in taking out his first ever top 5 opponent.
The two Mercedes on the attack. Rosberg makes a good start, and Hamilton's been left behind. Vettel moves up as well.
Nico Rosberg pounces on a bad start by Hamilton to race into the lead and a victory at the Italian Formula One Grand Prix.
Are we going to sort the scoring problem? We created more than 10 chances this evening. More than 10. More than 10. We went on to miss a penalty.
And Bafana coach Sheikh Mashaba digs his heels in after a failed campaign to qualify for AFCON 2017, bemoaning Bafana's inability to score. All this and more I've got for you later on in the sports bulletin. Be sure to stick around for it. But for now, it's back to Elvis, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour. Now, crowds have gathered outside ANC headquarters for a planned march by the so-called #Occupy Luthuli House movement. Now, tempers were running high in the build-up to the march as the ANC structures vowed to protect their organization at all cost. At the last minute, though, the organizers of the march decided to ask their followers to stay away in an attempt to avoid bloodshed. Now, for the latest on the story, we are joined on by our SABC News reporter, Aldrin Sampear, who has been following the story since this morning. Aldrin, a very good morning to you. And can you tell us what is the latest there at Luthuli House?
Well, Elvis, what I can tell you at the moment is that this demonstration has now turned into a #Defend Luthuli House instead of what we came for, which was #Occupy Luthuli House. We're still waiting for the organizers of this event, who said that they will be handing over a memorandum of demand to the leadership of the ANC. And right now I'm joined by the ANC Youth League President, Colin Maine, who said that you will be defending the Luthuli House this morning. And we see that there are some members of the party that have arrived as far from the Free State as well, saying that they will be defending Luthuli House this morning.
Yeah, of course, the ANC is a very big organization. We've got footprints all over the country. As you have said, members of the ANC are here for peace, but also to defend their own building and its leadership. Every Monday, the officials of the ANC are meeting. So the members are saying that they want to make sure that that meeting proceeds without being disturbed by these people who wanted to occupy Luthuli House. We can't allow anybody to occupy Luthuli House, whether you are a member of the ANC or not, because members of the ANC knows where to go when they want to talk to raise issues that affect their own organization. So you don't grandstand, invite media, march to Luthuli House. That cannot happen. So every member of the ANC who's got an issue to raise, our appeal is that they must go to their branches, their regions, and raise those issues. And members of the ANC are also welcome to come to Luthuli House, but not in a form of a march, because Luthuli House belongs to all of us as members of the ANC, as long as we do it within the correct streets of the organization.
Did you guys at all threaten the organizers of Occupy Luthuli House?
I think they have threatened themselves. We have not threatened anybody. They are not here because they are a threat to themselves. We would not allow people to be used by monopoly capital and call themselves members of the ANC. We know that they are funded by people who want regime change, who are very impatient to the ANC government. And some of them, we can't account for them. It's quite unfortunate that some are members of the ANC, but because they've been given money by big conglomerates, they behave in this way.
Can you name those conglomerates? Can you name those funders? Who are they?
Johan Rupert is one of them, and his associates. They are very impatient with the government of the African National Congress. So we are saying to them, wait for elections. If you want to vote the ANC out, mobilize people of South Africa to vote it out 2019, not now.
So as it stands for the ANC Youth League, President Jacob Zuma remains the president of the ANC and of the country, and will do so up until 2017, up until 2019 as the president of the country?
As a matter of fact, because we are a constitutional democracy, the term of the president of the country will end in 2019. So the president of the ANC of the country in 2019 will still be President Zuma. The president of the ANC until the next Congress of the ANC will still be President Zuma. The ANC cannot only be ANC when it is led by Matthew Poza, Kgalema Motlanthe and the others. They must accept outcomes of Congress that members of the ANC has not voted them.
Do you think that
Motlanthe says that he walked away? He did not walk away. He was rejected by members of the ANC in a Congress. So he must just accept, because this is part of the agenda to destabilize the movement.
Just quickly, will you be taking any action against ANC Youth League members who are part of organized Occupy Luthuli House?
Yes, any member of the ANC Youth League who is part of this thing, the leadership of the ANC Youth League will definitely have to act. You don't behave like this. If people are pop stars, not in the ANC Youth League, it's not an organization of pop stars.
Okay, then perfect. Thank you so much. That is the president of the ANC Youth League, Colin Mine. And right now, I'm joined by the chairperson of the Mkhonto Wesizwe Military Veterans Association, Babu Kebi Mapatsa. Good morning. It's been an early morning for the MK vets. They came out in their numbers, saying that they will be defending Luthuli House. But it must be a sad moment for the ANC to see something like this.
Yes, look, it is very sad to see something like this. But this thing, it tells us that there are people who are part of the regime change that wants to remove the ANC through other means, not democratic processes. So they are using these people to say they must occupy the Luthuli House and disrupt the proper functioning of the African National Congress.
How did it get to that level, though, where you have ANC members and supporters who say, who you now accuse of being used by other people who are pushing for regime change? How did the ANC arrive at that point?
You see, other people, when they are defeated in the conferences of the ANC, they don't accept the outcomes. They go out and mobilize to come up with allegations that are not founded. This is the type of the people that we see that have organized this march.
And a fact is, though, that those people will be amongst those who will be at the elective conference of the ANC come 2017, or even if there is a push for an early elective conference. What should the first step for the ANC be, even before changing its leadership?
We don't know whether those people are in good standing in their branches first, and we cannot attest that there will be delegates at the conference. So before we go to conference of the ANC, you know there's a policy conference that will be having next year. We discuss policies, and then after policies we go to the conference and adopt those policies.
The ANC in Gauteng is saying they're also supporting the SACP's call for a consultative conference. Is that something that the MK will throw its weight behind as well, instead of an elective conference?
Look, the conditions of 1969 Morogoro Conference and 2016 are different. So we don't support anything like a consultative conference. It's a waste of time and waste of resources and waste of energy. Let them wait for the policy conference next year in June and come and raise their issues. If they have got issues, we will discuss them at the policy conference of the ANC.
The next step for the ANC?
Look, the ANC is busy going around the provinces, explaining the outcome of the elections, how we performed, and explaining to our people that we did not win some of the municipalities. It's a wake-up call. We must all rally behind the leadership of the African National Congress, go and speak to our people. Where we were wrong, let us apologize and humble ourselves. That's the message the ANC is sending around.
Just finally, do you think that the current leadership of the ANC is the type of leadership that will be able to defend or fight for the ANC come the next battle, the 2019 battle ahead of the elections?
Look, this leadership of the ANC has done well and continues to do well under the leadership of President Jacob Zuma. But we are aware that there are people who want to make as if this leadership of the ANC is not performing well. It's performing well, this leadership of the ANC. It will perform well. Come 2019 elections, we would have addressed some of our shortcomings that we had in the local government elections.
Thank you so much. That is the chairperson of Mkhonto Wesizwe Military Veterans Association, really articulating the issues raised by the people here who are saying hashtag Occupy Luthuli House, saying that they will be defending Luthuli House this morning as well. Very important indeed for the ANC to make sure that it unites ahead of the conference that will be taking place in 2017, or even if there will be any success, even if there will be successful in having an early elective conference. We've heard that there is a push from the ANC Youth League for that early elective conference. I expect you guys in studio.
That's our reporter Eldrin Sampia live from the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House, which is now turned into hashtag Defend Luthuli House. Now, President Jacob Zuma is in China, as you know, and South Africa and BRICS are pushing for better policy coordination between developed and developing countries. This in a bid to combat inequality and underdevelopment. The push for a new economic growth path is also gaining momentum. But the gap between the rich and the poor, developed and developing nations, is widening.
Hangzhou, a city dubbed Paradise on Earth. Here, the world's biggest economies are meeting. For some, it's been a long journey as they prepare to exit the world stage. For others, stepping into uncharted territory. It's about creating a new economic global order to revive the world economy.
我谨对各位同事的到来表示热烈的欢迎。
The G20 should honor its commitment of not adopting new protectionist measures, strengthen coordination and cooperation on investment policies, take credible steps to stimulate trade growth. Infrastructure connectivity should be enhanced so as to bring developing countries and small and medium-sized companies into the global value chain and make the global economy more open and integrated.
Yet, behind the smiles, waves and handshakes, there is a silent acknowledgement of the widening economic gap and decline in the global economy. Representing Africa, President Zuma did not shy away from confronting these issues.
We welcome, in particular, the fact that China has placed development in Africa as a key priority of its G20 presidency. This strategic focus bodes well for concretizing the support that the G20 could bring to Africa's development and industrialization. Importantly, industrialization is at the heart of Africa's development agenda.
While economic talk dominates, other issues are also being discussed. Terrorism, conflict and tensions in Europe. A smaller grouping of BRICS countries met on the sidelines. What emerged is the need for a new economic path to ensure the poor are not left behind. The message here is that while countries devise new strategies and innovations to create new growth for the global economy, they must not impose further burden on the less developed by resorting to protectionism and inward-looking policies. Mzwande Lembech, SABC News, Hangzhou, China.
Back here at home, the Commission of Inquiry into Higher Education and Training is expected to host public hearings into the feasibility of a fee-free higher education in Cape Town today. Now, this is part of the countrywide hearings expected to take place until November. Stakeholder presentations will include universities, student organizations, interested individuals and college bodies. The commission was established in January 2016 and is expected to submit a preliminary report to the President in November 2016 and a full report in June 2017. Meanwhile, the pre-trial court hearing of Christopher Panayoto and his 3 co-accused will commence today in the Port Elizabeth High Court. During the initial pre-trial hearing, Advocate Hanli Barker, who represents the accused number 2, Sizwazake Vumazonke, told the court that he was medically unfit to start the pre-trial hearing. Panayoto is the alleged mastermind behind the abduction and murder of his wife Jade in April last year. The other 2 suspects are Sinetemba Nenembe and Zolani Sibeko. Now, to recap of what's happening, the last time the case was in court and of what is expected today, we now cross live to our reporter, Lerato Tipa. Lerato, very good morning to you and welcome. What can we expect today in court?
Very good morning to you. Well, what was expected in court today was a pre-trial hearing where both the state and the defense were going to present their evidence before court. But it was actually postponed just a few minutes after it started because the alleged hitman, Sizwazake Vumazonke, is actually in a coma in hospital and proceedings could not go forward. So what was supposed to be a pre-trial ahead of the court trial date on the 3rd of October had been postponed because Sizwazake Vumazonke, the alleged suspect in the case, is in a coma in a critical position in hospital.
Well, Lerato, thank you so much for that update. As you heard, the court or the trial has been postponed to a later date. Well, that's where we got to leave it for now. We'll take a break and we'll be right back after that with Evan and his guest.
A conscious move from being a street kid to being a barrister of note.
Keep on praying for me to make a better life.
A creative application of the mind on an essential need, water in wheelbarrow containers.
How about if we were to come up with an idea of an enclosed container that sits on top of the frame of a wheelbarrow?
With the sharing of resources, a boy with Russell Silver syndrome receives medication.
The fact that you just said to me, well, you covered for next month, that's amazing.
So that's the medication.
For more inspiring stories, stay tuned to Bupilong every Friday.
Hello again, you're at Newsroom here on SABC News. Now, the Gabonese opposition candidate, Jean Ping, declared himself the president last week Friday after a disputed election that triggered days of post-election riots against President Ali Bongo. Violence erupted across the Central African country early in the week. That was on Wednesday, following the announcement of a slim victory for President Bongo, who was first elected in 2009 after the death of his father, Omar, Gabon's president for 42 years. Now, in solidarity with their fellow Gabonese back home, those living in South Africa are continuing to protest at their embassies in various cities across the country. Now, to tell us a little bit more about this and take it a little bit further in studio, well, I'm joined by a member of the Gabonese protestation group, Jacques Erwin. Very good morning, Jacques. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, sir.
Jacques, the protests are continuing in Gabon, it seems, and you guys have more plans to protest here in South Africa this week. Just give us a quick idea what you guys will be doing, yeah.
Okay. First, I would like to say that the situation that we have in Gabon is very bad. It's very bad because we have a president who lost the election, but he's not ready to live peacefully. So I can see that from tomorrow I will be meeting with other Gabonese, and on the 12th September we'll be marching in Pretoria to protest against the result.
Now, I understand it's been very difficult to communicate back home because the lines have been down, internet, Wi-Fi and so forth has not been working. You've been How have you been communicating with people back in Gabon, and what are they saying about the situation on the ground there right now?
Okay, I can say to you that to communicate with our people in Gabon is quite difficult since last Tuesday, because what the regime did is that they cut the internet connection. So there's no more WhatsApp, there's no more Facebook, there's no more SMSs as well. So it is very difficult.
And what are people saying? Are the protests continuing? Are people marching in the streets? We saw the police crack down on Friday. I heard a report that, unconfirmed, I have to say, that around 100 people were shot. Is that still the same kind of thing that's coming out?
Okay, from the pictures that we receive from Gabon, for those who are using a roaming system, I believe, we saw many dead people lying on the street. We saw many people going to the hospital as well because they were wounded between Monday and Tuesday night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We see Jean Ping, he was just on screen there now. He's declared himself the winner of the election on Friday. Surely that makes the country a lot more unstable.
Okay, but the reason why Jean Ping declared himself a winner, it's because we know for sure that the current regime is not going to say that he's the winner. They're going to say for sure that Ali is the winner. But it's very sad that after election, us as the Gabonese people, now we must be sitting here asking Ali Bongo to live peacefully. It's very sad. That situation is very sad to us.
Tell us, what is it like in Gabon? What is it like to travel in Gabon? I understand that you can only fly in and out of certain cities and it's too dangerous to drive around the country. Is that the case?
Right now is the case. That's the case because the capital, Libreville, is very quiet. There are no activities there since Wednesday. There's nothing happening.
And Jean Ping, is still in hiding? And if he is it in Libreville? Some people say that they think that he might be in South Africa even.
But I don't know who said that Jean Ping is hiding, because Jean Ping is not hiding. Everyone can see Jean Ping in Libreville. As I'm talking, yesterday he made a strong statement asking people not to go to work today.
Give me a quick idea as to the solution that you guys would like to see immediately in Gabon now to come to terms with the political turmoil, the violence and so forth. What is the solution going forward?
There's only one solution going forward, is to recount the vote in the province called Wotogwe. That's the only solution. If we can vote, if we can count the vote in the Wotogwe, that I think the Gabonese people will be happy with that.
Jacques, thank you very much for joining us today. From the Gabonese protestation group is Jacques Irwin joining us here in our studio in Johannesburg.
Thank you very much.
Let's move on and take a quick look at, we've been asking you a live question. Of course, our live question today has been dealing with the Occupy Luthuli House protests that we've been running on the show for, since 9 o'clock this morning, and we're asking, how do you view this protest? Mbongi Senyati says, Newsroom, it's time for the ANC membership to stand up to the leadership. They've tried all internal processes but are not listened to. This is a different message to what comes. This is DeVoe Johnson. He says, Newsroom, if South Africa is a democratic country, then why is the ANC acting like a regime? No party should be above the law, including the ANC. That's from DeVoe Johnson. Lechasa says, Occupy Luthuli House, ANC must respect the masses, otherwise 2019 elections will be much interesting. This one from Guguletu. He says, the group will not attain the aspirations. It's a waste of time. ANC leadership said Zuma is going nowhere. Newsroom. Very simple and a very strong message coming there from you. Keep it coming. At SABC Newsroom is where you interact with us. Now, the African continent is continuously in the spotlight, it seems, for all the wrong reasons, from the newest nation, South Sudan, in a dire state of poverty, famine and conflict, to Boko Haram insurgency in northern Nigeria, conflict in Somalia, Burundi, DRC, and instability in any nation heading into elections, it seems, these days. However, the continent provides the world with great opportunities. NGOs and world bodies continue to change policies and find methods of addressing these issues, as well as advancing the continent through education and technology. Now, I'm joined in studio by Professor John Tesha to tell us more about Agenda 2063, how it is set to change the continent. A very good morning to you, Professor. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Professor, world bodies continue to kind of set new goals for development here on the continent. 2063 seems a very far away for us that's living in real time. Tell us a little bit about 2063, what Agenda 23 is, if we can maybe start there. It's not as simple as just a few goals, is it?
No. Agenda 2063 is a vision for the continent, a vision for the Africa we want. A long-term vision, yes, indeed, but you would not expect it to be a short-term vision. Africa has to look ahead, and it has 7, 8 aspirations. For example, one is a united and strong Africa. I don't think anybody will dispute that. We want a united and strong Africa, an Africa that is at peace with itself, and that whose development is for the people. And I think this is a noble aspiration, that we can do that. It's based on the spirit of Pan-Africanism and African Renaissance.
It's very noble. You mention it yourself. It seems at times a very difficult road map and a very difficult road to walk on the continent. We seem to be constantly at war with ourselves. How do we get past this?
Well, let me put it this way. I believe, and I think most people believe now, those who are involved in this, that the political landscape on the continent is changing, and it's changing for the better. If you go through history, you will see how many stumbling blocks we went through. You will recall, maybe you won't, but you will recall that we had a period where we had life presidencies. And that period has lapsed. Yes, we have some who have served for 30 years or so, in Gabon and others, in Cameroon. But the truth of the matter is the political landscape is changing.
Yeah.
We never would see a retired president on the continent. Never. In the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
They were either outside the country in exile or, unfortunately, 6 feet down.
Yes.
Now you have them. And the organization I work for epitomizes that. We have 40 retired presidents. How did they retire? Democratically. They left office democratically. That's something we should celebrate.
Yes, absolutely. And how do we, as the nature of the media, they always focus on those who do not want to retire, it seems. How do we get this good news story across a little bit better? And how do we get those that do not want to retire when it's their time, how do we get them to play ball?
Interesting question. I think the first thing we must promote, all of us, as Africans, as institutions, is that there is life after presidency.
Yes.
And that is manifested by the 40 former presidents that have established their own organization. 40 former presidents. We've lost a few, but they are at least more than 35. That's a good show. Now, with the changing political landscape, it means that we have some degree of stability and some degree of peace and stability, I should say. And that is that we know that without peace, there can never be development. So peace is essential for development, and that's the period we're going through now.
I want to talk about what's happening in China just now, just to give it a little bit of currency. Of course, the G20 summit is taking place there. We see that China and BRICS are calling for, leveling the playing fields with Africa for developing nations. Do you see this happening, and do you see this as the future for the continent?
Well, let me put it where the continent is the breadbasket of the world. The entire world is looking at Africa. We have to get our things right. Only a few days ago, you had TICAD, the Japanese Africa Cooperation. Now you have G20 discussing about Africa. And I think they see opportunity in Africa. They see opportunities, but we need to get things right. Let me give you an example. Africa has, from figures that we know, 60% of the world arable land. 60%, which means we're really, truly, the breadbasket of the world.
Yes.
But we have to have the playing field leveled. Last year, and there is a report chaired by high-level panel chaired by President Mbeki on illicit financial flows.
Yeah.
Now, one interesting factor that we have to be careful and see what we can do is that we're losing $50 billion every year.
Yes,
$50 billion.
That solves all our problems.
Absolutely, absolutely. $50 billion.
If we get
what we get from aid, it's negligible.
Yeah, it's negligible.
We don't need aid. We don't.
What about, in conclusion, I want to talk to you about later this month, the UN Security Council is expected to make an announcement about permanent or the rotating seats. 2 African nations is the expectation, is what's being called for by BRICS. They garnering support for this. How do you view this, and do you think South Africa has a chance to be one of those nations?
Well, it has to be a decision, a continental decision at the level of African Union Commission. And obviously, in choosing who would represent Africa in Security Council, there are a number of factors that must be taken into account. The ability and capacity of the country to effectively represent the continent. That's one. I have been a diplomat. I know what it means to represent a continent. I know what it means to represent a country, but to represent a continent is more than that. So that's one. And we have countries on the continent that can represent. What we need to do is a decision that is made by Africans at the level of the African Union Commission. Once we choose a country, 2 countries, and to say they represent us, that's what we need. Yeah. And we have capable states here that can do the representation thing. I wouldn't rule out South Africa, but I think it's up to the AU Commission to decide.
Professor, thank you very much for joining us. Professor John Tesha will join us periodically from now on to give us his views on the show about what's happening on the continent, specifically on a Monday. It seems as if a lot happens on the continent over weekends. Professor, thank you. Thank you for joining us on this Monday. Talking about Agenda 2063. Yes, that's the new view of the African continent that we all have a part to play in. Now, time to move on to our sports focus for today. We couldn't do it a little bit earlier. We look at, well, the national soccer team, Bafana Bafana, and what's been another miserable campaign to qualify for the Nations Cup here in Africa 2016. The coach under fire for many reasons. He did bring up one salient point. Where are the goal scorers, he asked. Let's take a listen to what the coach said.
One problem. I haven't heard anybody talking about saying, how are we going to sort the scoring problem? We created more than 10 chances this evening. More than 10. More than 10. We went on to miss a penalty. Nobody says anything about that. I mean, those are the problems that we're sitting with.
Yeah, I'm with Kenda Mahamati now. Before he does the sport, I wanted to ask him about Shakes. And you say he's blaming everyone else and he's not taking the blame?
Well, yes and no. He did bring up a very salient point, like you said just now. It's about the goal scorers. Where are they?
It's the coach's duty to get the goal scorers to put it in the back of the net, isn't it? That last time I checked.
It's his duty to make sure that he selects the right team. Yes, he's under fire for his team selections. Having said that, we look at what happens in our domestic league, the PSL. You look at how many goal scorers we've got in there. How many of them are South African? Very few. Top goal scorers, Kama Billiat from Zimbabwe. Yeah. We've got people like
Are you saying because South Africa has the best league on the continent, we're suffering a little bit of the same fate that the English football team is suffering from. Is that the case?
That is absolutely the case, that we seem to have relied too much on great soccer players from the rest of the world, the rest of the continent, and not creating the same for what we have, what we need in South Africa. And you know what, you look at the kind of play that we're looking at, missing a cross, crossing it in the wrong place, two-footed tackle which would have gotten a red card in any other league in the world, and then boom, this is the best shot of the entire match, I'll tell you. And Hlompaki kind of missing it, a couple of free kicks taken into no man's land. Yes, we've got a problem.
Yeah, we have a big problem, it seems. Not a small one, a massive problem.
That is a free kick.
Part of the
free kick at the international
Part
level.
of the problem is talent, right? Now, wasn't part of the World Cup legacy to be the establishing, using the money that we made during the World Cup to establish junior leagues, to bring through talented young players? Now,
we're still waiting for those.
It's 6 years later. Some of those talented young players should be coming through, but they're not, because the money wasn't spent on creating national junior leagues, was it?
Doesn't seem like it, even. I think it's something we really need to spend some time playing with, just to see exactly what's going on and why it is that the legacy project that was spoken about post and post the World Cup hasn't actually borne any fruit whatsoever. And here's a penalty.
That's just lame. If you're going to do anything, hit it as hard as you can, hit it straight, and that's it. But I mean, to just roll it into the keeper.
Last time I played football was in like standard 10. I just dated myself. Yes, standard 10.
There's no more standard 10.
You know
it's
what?
now grade.
I just said I dated myself. You know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. JMB days.
It's great. It's great.
I would have done a much better job at that particular penalty. That was actually quite diabolical.
Yeah, the national team is it's a battle for all of us. All those at La Bafana is finding it very difficult to kind of keep your chin up and smile about it, because you just can't anymore. Kendall, you'll be hanging around to give us a quick sport update. Next, let's take a quick break first.
Welcome back. Yes, I'm Kendall Makhamat, and as Evan said, here's a little more detail on what's happening in the world of sports. Our top story is from the US Open, where fourth-seeded Spaniard Rafael Nadal suffered a surprise loss to Luca Pouille of France in an epic 4-hour clash at the US Open in New York. Pouille beat the 14-time Grand Slam winner in 5 sets to advance to his second quarterfinal in a major.
The encounter between one of tennis's golden sons and the flamboyant Frenchman was a typical seesaw affair. Pouille won the first and third sets, Nadal the second and fourth, in a straightforward my turn, your turn game of tennis. There was, however, drama in the fifth, as Pouille recovered from a breakdown to take the set to the tiebreak. He then finally converted his fourth match point to win the tiebreak 8-6 and claimed the biggest win of his career.
Luca Pouille has done the unthinkable in taking out his first ever top 5 opponent, and it is two-time U.S. Open champion Rafael Nadal that is his victim.
At this time I was okay, you will have to save a match point. I couldn't believe he would miss it, but you know, he's like every player, he feels the pressure as well, so even if he's one of the best, he feels the pressure, and it's a tough one to make at this time. And then when he missed it, of course, I was very happy.
I fight until the end. There's things that I could do better, but had the right attitude. I fight it until the last ball. But I need something else. and it's something more that was not there today.
Top seed Novak Djokovic, however, raced past unseeded Brit Kyle Edmund. The Serb, who hasn't enjoyed much on-court action this week, recorded a 6-2, 6-1, 6-4 victory in just under 2 hours. In the women's draw, second-seeded German Angelique Kerber triumphed over Petra Kvitova in the battle of the Grand Slam champions. The 14th-seeded Czech double faltered on match point to hand Kerber a 6-3, 7-5 win. The victory means that world number 1 Serena Williams will have to reach the final to have a chance of retaining her top spot. And former world number 1 Caroline Wozniacki of Denmark upset 8th-seeded American Madison Keys. Wozniacki needed 80 minutes to book her place in the last 8 with a straight sets win. Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
And now back to a little bit about our sports focus from a little earlier. After Friday's 2017 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier against Mauritania, Bafana Bafana are playing continental giants Egypt in the Nelson Mandela Challenge tomorrow evening. The match will also serve as a preparation for the 2018 FIFA World Cup qualifiers that start next month.
The sooner Bafana forget about their dismal AFCON campaign, the better. Bafana finished third in Group M after Friday's 1-1 draw with Mauritania. Inasmuch as the team's defense is leaking, the striking force is also struggling to find the back of the net.
We're building up very well from the back, up to the opposition's defending third. That's where we're getting problems of finishing up. But what else can we do? If you look at the top goal scorers in our league, it's all foreign-based players, and we're not talking about it.
Are we going to see any improvements in the Nelson Mandela Challenge match in Soweto?
The Egypt game, it's another game. Highly tactical team that we're going to play against. I think we will just change here and there and look at what approach can we apply in that.
After failing to qualify for AFCON, Bafana will now focus on the 2018 World Cup qualifiers, and the coach is adamant the team will go to Russia.
The way the boys are playing, I don't doubt that we'll qualify for the World Cup.
New Orlando Pirates signee Abubakar Mubara was the talk of the town after containing Brazil's Neymar at the Olympics in Rio early last month. On Friday, he won the Man of the Match award.
For me, it's just to keep calm, like I said, to play football. I'm not here to talk about a lot of things. You know, I can only play football. I'm not good in talking and knowing about what I want, but I know where I'm heading. You know, I know what I want to become one day. I know what I love to do, and to play football.
Mubara plays either at right back or central midfield, but what is his preferred position?
No comment.
The Nelson Mandela Challenge match between Bafana Bafana and Egypt will be at Orlando Stadium on Tuesday evening. Mduduzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
Now, just in case you missed it, Bafana will be in action again tomorrow night, this time against Egypt, in the Nelson Mandela Challenge at 7 o'clock. Be sure to see if there's any difference from Friday to tomorrow. Be sure to catch that match. On to other sporting news. Germany's Nico Rosberg has won the Italian Grand Prix for the dominant Mercedes team. His victory helped him to cut teammate Lewis Hamilton's World Champions lead to just 2 points, with 7 races remaining. Hamilton, who started on pole, finished second at Monza after a disappointingly slow start.
Lights out, away we go. The two Mercedes on the attack. Rosberg makes a good start, and Hamilton's been left behind. Vettel moves up as well.
This was a vital race for both Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg after starting the race on the front row of the grid. Hamilton had won this race on 3 occasions from pole, with 13 of the last 17 races here won from pole. But after a disastrous start for Hamilton, the championship leader dropped to 6th spot at the beginning of the race. In lap 10, Hamilton gained momentum and went to 4th spot after overtaking Valtteri Bottas of Williams. Rosberg was already 10 seconds in the lead by lap 16. Hamilton proved to be a big threat to the leader when he won 4th in lap 29. With 13 laps to go, Rosberg looked very untroubled, enjoying almost 11 seconds lead over Hamilton. Rosberg managed to hold on getting his first victory at the historic circuit outside Milan. This was his 17th win of the season, one more than Hamilton and 21st of his career.
Victory, his 7th win of 2016. More victories than he's ever had in one single season before.
Ferrari's Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Raikkonen finished 3rd and 4th at the team's home race, with Australian Daniel Ricciardo 5th for Red Bull. This was Vettel's 2 years in a row, finishing on the podium to the delight of the local crowd. Sfiso Ramara, SABC News.
Now, staying with Formula One news, sources report that Liberty Media, run by multi-billionaire media mogul John Malone, who owns the Atlanta Braves in Major League Baseball and is also the largest landowner in the United States, is the frontrunner to purchase a controlling stake of Formula One. Expected to make the first of 2 payments tomorrow, the sale would allow U.S. private equity firm CVC Capital Partners, which has a 35% stake, to exit F1. Now, we'll stay close to that story and bring you details as they come up. Now, going on to our next story making headlines, the England netball team beat South Africa 57 goals to 44 in their final quad series match in Melbourne. Hosts Australia clinched the series title when they beat New Zealand in the decider.
The South Africans went into the series as the lowest ranked side. But, as was the case against New Zealand on Wednesday, they again looked determined to give their opponents a go.
Great start for South Africa.
The Proteas were on fire in the first quarter and enjoyed a 6-goal lead at one stage.
You don't see that is what we'll call a smile.
But the Roses played catch-up and the teams went into the break, South Africa leading 13-11. England needed a strong start in the second quarter, and that's what they got. Several turnovers kept the score tight, and the Proteas refused to back down. But England were in charge at the half-time break, leading 25-21. The third-ranked team in the world continued to control the clash in the third quarter and slowly pulled away from the South Africans. At the end of the quarter, the English led 41-33. The Proteas refused to give up, but England held on to record their first win of the series. Meanwhile, New Zealand were left to rue missed chances as the Australian Diamonds won the inaugural Quad Series trophy. The world number 1 team beat the Kiwis 60 goals to 55 in the final match of the series. Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
Now, South Africa's Brad Binder looks set to be crowned world champion in the Moto3 category after his victory at Silverstone pulled him 86 points clear with 6 races remaining. It was a day of drama as Binder's title challenger crashed out and the Premier Class saw a collision on the first lap. Now, first though, in the MotoGP, Frenchman Laurent Bas and Spaniard Paul Espargaro collided at Maggots, with the 2 riders taken to the medical center after the race was halted before a restart. Spaniard Maverick Vinales quickly took the lead. Vinales rode to his first MotoGP victory for Suzuki, with Britain's Carl Crutchlow second in his home race after starting on pole. Now, Valentino Rossi completed the podium. After 12 of 18 races, Rossi is 50 points adrift championship leader Marc Marquez. And in Moto3, South African Brad Binder stormed to victory, edging closer to a championship title. His closest rival, Jorge Navarro, collided with Andrea Migno on the penultimate lap, and is now 86 points behind Binder. And that's why we leave it with the sports for this hour. Up next, we've got Tsiete Munaru standing by to give the weather forecast.
Hello there, welcome from the weather desk. It looks like it's going to be yet another hot day in South Africa with possibilities of fires in some areas. So please do look out for those, but it's going to be a lot cooler towards the southwestern parts because of a cold front that's just coming through there. And also stronger winds are expected for the Western Cape province going towards the Eastern Cape. Wind speeds of just around 65 kilometers an hour are expected there. And by tomorrow, look at the band of moisture now going over the central parts into some parts of the Northern Cape province as well as over the northwest. Here are your temperatures. I did mention it's going to be quite hot for the SADC regions. Windhoek at 30 degrees, 29 for Lusaka and 26 for Harare. Pretoria are sitting at a maximum of 29 this afternoon. A bit of a windy day is expected in South Africa. So right from the Eastern Cape province going towards the Western Cape and some parts of KwaZulu-Natal, wind speeds of between 25 to 65 kilometers an hour expected. Pietermaritzburg is at 32, 26 for Walvis Bay. Do expect a bit of rainy weather again towards Yaoundé as well as over Bangui in CAR. Libreville is expected to be partly cloudy. There's possibilities of rain along those parts, and also expect the rainy conditions to strengthen tomorrow. There's possibilities of heavy rainfall for Bangui and again over the central parts of Cameroon. Clear skies though for much of the central and the southern parts, and if you're going to be in the tropics, nothing much in terms of rainfall is coming through for you early in the morning. Only later on into the afternoon you should expect a bit of showers. Temperature wise, 27 for Libreville. Yeah, those showers are expected this afternoon. Kinshasa 36 and 28 for Kigali. Quite a hot start over the central parts of Africa, but Addis Ababa is much cooler at 23 degrees. That includes Kampala as well, which is sitting at 24. Those mid-20s are expected right across the central part of Africa. Dry weather and just about sunny skies are expected just over the interior into the Sahara Desert. And those dry conditions are expected to continue for the next couple of days. Basically, the rest of the week is going to be quite hot for Seba as well as over Al Jof. But those concerning temperatures, or ones that you really should be wary of, is Mecca at 43, Riyadh at 44. And then again, it's basically business as usual towards Baghdad, Damascus, and Cairo. Those are into the lower 30s to mid-30s. Tripoli is at 31 degrees. Sunny skies are expected along those parts. And then rain right from the western side of West Africa, just along Abidjan, going in towards Lagos, and definitely over the Central African Republic regions. They do expect rainy weather, but nothing is expected for Burkina Faso. Mali, if you're going to be in Timbuktu, expect hot weather with maybe a maximum of 41 degrees. Jamena also into the lower 40s, and rainy weather into Conakry. But dry weather for Las Palmas, Rabat, and Algiers. Algiers now just taking it a notch up with a maximum of 37 degrees. So a really hot day is expected there. That is it for the weather. Do stay tuned. There'll be more later.
There must be something. There has to be a place where young entrepreneurs can come, and get advice and interact with people that are knowledgeable.
Business for me really, it's a calling. I do believe that it is a calling. Because I even remember, even when I was younger, when I was in grade 4, I sold silkworms. And they were quite popular actually.
I was making a New York brand in South Africa. Being very proud of being a South African, I wanted to make it proudly South African.
For more inspiring stories, stay tuned to Bupilong every Friday.
The Goodman Gallery is celebrating 50 years promoting art from all sectors of life.
Actively involved in social and political life of South Africa, and we really have been. It's been a fascinating place to be and to watch.
Your personal style is synonymous to your signature statement.
Style is unique. It is a representation of you, your personality, the things you like. It speaks on your behalf, and it just represents the kind of person that you are, your uniqueness.
It's hilarious, apart from anything else. It's the satire, the sort of commentary on what we kind of take for granted as we exist in daily life.
Vote for Wonder Boy with your heart. Vote for Wonder Boy with your heart and run at cinemas nationwide.
For your weekly dose of arts and entertainment news, tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
Joined us, it's 11 o'clock.
on Central Africa time on this Monday, the 5th of September 2016. Jumbo Africa. This is Newsroom. I'm Elvis Preslin.
And I'm Renee Vess. Of course, we will be with you and for the last hour. Now, we're also streaming live on our YouTube channel. Now, today our focus has been on the chaos, or rather the eruption around the Luthuli House. Of course, the Occupy Luthuli House movement says it will deliver their memorandum to the ANC headquarters there this morning.
So the question then we pose to you, it's on your screen right now. How do you view this Occupy Luthuli House protest? That's the question that we pose to you. Let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. If you like us there, you, yes you, become part and parcel of the Inform. But right now, let's take a look at your news headlines. The Occupy Luthuli House movement says it will still deliver their memorandum to the ANC headquarters at the Luthuli House in Johannesburg. This is despite the march being called off after reportedly receiving threats.
South Africa and BRICS are pushing for policy between developed and developing nations.
And here at home, the pre-trial hearing of Christopher Ponayoto and his 3 co-accused has been postponed. It was set to take place at the Port Elizabeth High Court. As you know, that case, of course, has been postponed. But right now, for more on your sports news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening a little bit later. Very good morning, Kendall.
Good morning to the both of you. Lots happening out in the footballing front. Bafana having had a match over the weekend. We've got another one tomorrow. But also a lot of tennis action out there and the US Open at Flushing Meadows. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in sports today. The US Open was left buzzing this morning as Frenchman Lucas Pouille knocked a resurgent and firm favourite Rafa Nadal out of the tournament.
Lucas Pouille has done the unthinkable in taking out his first ever top 5 opponent.
The 2 Mercedes on the attack. Rosberg makes a good start, and Hamilton's been left behind. Vettel moves up as well.
Nico Rosberg pounces on a bad start by Hamilton to race into the lead and a victory at the Italian Formula One Grand Prix.
How are we going to sort the scoring problem? We created more than 10 chances this evening, more than 10. More than 10. We went on to miss a penalty.
Bafana coach Shakes Mashaba digs his heels in after a failed campaign to qualify for AFCON 2017, bemoaning Bafana's inability to score. We'll also be chatting to Nina De Rio, Trail Runner Deluxe, at about 11:35 or so. Be sure to tune in for all of that. But for now, it's back to Renee Vest, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. The Occupy Luthuli House movement says it will still deliver their memorandum to the ANC headquarters at Luthuli House in Johannesburg today, despite some of their members' buses being turned away, allegedly by police. One of the organisers, Gugu Ndima, says they urge the public to stay away from the march because of the threats they have received.
What we indicated, in fact we sent out a statement this morning, is that we urge the public to stay away. The fundamental reason behind this was the threats, and some of our members who are coming from other provinces were turned away by police, which is state machinery. So you can't have casualties, which are members of the public, getting caught in the crossfire. If you actually look out here, you look at the contingent in terms of state machinery, police forces, you wouldn't want a situation where you find casualties right at the out of Luthuli House. So we requested members of the public to stay away, and we will take the responsibility moving forward as members of the ANC and ANC Youth League. In fact, we are going to submit our demands today.
But the statement did not indicate who exactly is threatening you. Where are these threats coming from?
All we can say at the moment is state machinery. That's what we can say at the moment.
State machinery, clarify a bit.
Security.
In terms of security. These are certainly not the numbers, if at all, I guess, that you were expecting. Are you expecting this to be a success at all? Buses were expected to be brought in with some of the members that you said were going to participate, but we're not seeing that here this morning.
The members have been turned away. We know for a fact that members were turned away who are coming from other provinces through buses, and it was actually police doing that. So it was a greater risk to have them come here and end up finding conflict and confusion here at Lutuli House. So we couldn't sacrifice that. We couldn't see casualties here. So hence we indicated that members of the public, because the support was overall members of the public as well, we weren't going to sacrifice that.
But there aren't any protesters at the stage. Right here behind me, all we're seeing is organisers here. So would you say at this stage that so far it's been unsuccessful? Your call for, let's discard the members of the public, but from members of the ANC, we're not seeing any of them in front of Lutuli House at this point.
Like I indicated, some have been turned away, but also in Gauteng, the PEC of Gauteng had indicated that members of the ANC are discouraged to come here. So we can't shy away from the fact that that has had implications as well. But we know that there are still members that are coming. In terms of numbers, definitely it wouldn't be the numbers we had anticipated, given the security implications we would have had, but also the fact that we would have been risking lives of people here at Lutuli House. But we are definitely going to be making submissions, as indicated in our demands, to say that we are calling upon certain things to happen within Lutuli House.
Meanwhile, Mkhonto sees where military veterans associations say they will protect the ANC.
We're here as MK to protect the African National Congress from those people who are marching against the African National Congress. What I believe in as the member of the African National Congress, we know the processes. If each and every member who's active in the branches of the African National Congress, they know the processes, they know when they want to add the grievance, they know how to follow the channels through branches. That's why we are here to say we engage them. We're going to engage them anyway.
What do you mean? What do you mean when you say you'll be engaging them? What does it mean?
As members of the African National Congress, politically, not politically bankrupt, politically brilliant, we know when we have problems amongst us, we engage each other. Not physically, we engage each other. They're going to tell what do they want. What do they want? Because we have branches where they must go and lay and air their grievance.
Well, for more on this, let's get an update from our reporter. But first, let's go over to Elvis.
Yes, Renee. Now, the ANC Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to arrive at Lutuli House for his weekly Monday meeting. Now, as you know, the stakes are high and temperatures are rising outside the ANC's headquarters in Joburg. On the opposite sides of Helen Joseph streets, we believe a small group of #Occupy Lutuli House protesters are staring down at the members of Mkhonto Sizwe that are lined up outside the entrance of Lutuli House. Police are on high alert as the protesters have crossed the streets and singing and dancing at least once this morning. Now, for the latest on this, to find out what is happening, Griselda Lewis is standing by. Very good morning to you, Griselda. Can you tell us what is going down there at Lutuli House?
Well, the visuals that you are seeing are live at the Beyers Naudé Square here in the Johannesburg CBD, where you see that marchers from the #Occupy Lutuli House have gathered here. They've not moved since this morning. They were supposed to leave this area at about 8 o'clock this morning and move towards the headquarters of the ANC, but what we're hearing from them at this point is that they're saying that they're being intimidated by members of the MK-MVA who have been lining or making a line outside the headquarters of the ANC since this morning. But what we can tell you at this point is that the top 6 meeting is scheduled to get underway any minute now. We did see the convoy of the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa arriving, as well as the chairperson of the ANC, Baleka Mbete, as well. So we're expecting that meeting to go ahead as scheduled, the meeting that takes place every Monday by the top 6 to go ahead. And these marchers behind us at the moment are saying that they're feeling a bit intimidated. They're waiting for a report from the police on how to proceed. You'd know that they want to hand over a memorandum of demands, of course, which include that President Jacob Zuma resign, as well as the Fees Commission to be disbanded, as well as the NEC itself to resign. Let's chat now to one of the organizers to find out what the latest is regarding this particular march. Ronald Lamola, thank you very much for your time. today. What is the status at the moment regarding the march? You've been gathered here at Beyers Naudé Square for quite some time. Are you going to hand over this memorandum of demands?
Yes, we had arranged with the SG. As you can see, these are very peaceful demonstrators. They have even said they can walk naked to show that they are not armed with any stone or even an OCAP. And the Secretary General had agreed that he's going to receive the memorandum. But unfortunately, the private militia, the MKMVA, has stopped comrades from going to deliver the memorandum because the SG wanted to take it before it goes to the top 6 meeting. It is very unfortunate that in a democratic society, people want to stop people from expressing their views. But it's also shocking, why do we still have an MKMVA in this age? Because what we need in this country is a weapon that can fight. It's free education. That is the weapon that we need because we are in an economic struggle. We need tablets, we need ballpoints. We no longer need this thing of the MKMVA. And that is what young people must be given. They must not be given weapons and alcohol and all manner of things. Young people want free education. They say President Zuma is an obstacle for us to achieve our economic freedom objective. Therefore, that is the call.
But are you hopeful at all? We see the large police contingent in front of the entrance at Luthuli House, as well as the MKMVA members who've been marching towards the direction where you are. Has there been any communication from inside the headquarters at all, if you will be able to submit this?
Yes, there has been communications, and the police have went back to communicate with the SG and the head of security. They will come back to tell us how we're going to deal with the matter, because we don't see anything wrong with submitting a memorandum. In fact, the state, we are shocked even why the state must be able to intimidate, and even the MKMVA, because this then create a barricade between the members of the ANC and the society as a whole. And we are just here to communicate a message from members of society, from the ANC, from members of the ANC, and all concerned South Africans, that the country is on an autopilot, and the way the ANC is being run now is not only a threat to itself, but it's also a threat to the country as a whole, and it's a threat to the economic, military, and any other political stability of the country. So we need to put our house in order. That is what we are here for, to demand the restoration of the values of the organization.
Speaking to the ANC Youth League president a bit earlier on while he was addressing journalists, he did say that any member of the ANC Youth League who is participating in this march will face disciplinary action. Your thoughts on that?
Remember, he doesn't have legitimacy. He's not a member of the Youth League himself. How do you lead a structure you're not a member of? He's not a member of the Youth League. He has no right to speak on behalf of the Youth League. And you know that he was elected in a fraudulent Congress. In fact, it's a kind of lazy thinking that people must be intimidated to suppress views with DC, using bureaucratic structures to suppress. And what we are seeing here today is exactly that people are threatened. There's an environment of fears, economic scaring people, tactics of intimidation, and all kinds of things. And that's why the ANC can't rediscover itself. It can't get the creative views of its members because of intimidation. How ill-disciplined is a peaceful demonstration? How can you justify that a peaceful demonstration is an act of ill-discipline?
So are you saying that you would challenge any action that has been taken against ANC Youth League members who are then summoned, perhaps to appear before a disciplinary hearing as such?
There is no constitutional basis. These guys are exercising their constitutional right as members of the ANC, as members of society. Chris Hani submitted the Morogoro Memorandum. He submitted it directly to President O.R. Tambo. He was they nearly subjected him to the military tribunal where they wanted to sentence him to death. But sanity prevailed in O.R. Tambo, and he created a platform for members of the organization who were concerned that the organization has taken a tangent. And this is a Morogoro moment. This is what we need. We have accepted that internal structures have failed the movement, and people, the organization, and also those who have, the 3 million people who did not vote, also have a say in how the ANC must be run, and also those 10 million that have voted, or 8 million that have voted for the ANC. They must find a way of expressing their views about how the ANC is run, because they are not members. You will not find them in a branch meeting of the ANC. That is what members and leaders of the ANC must begin to appreciate. We are no longer operating underground. This is a transparent society. Any underground movement was unbanned by F.W. de Klerk in 1990. People now must freely express their views.
You know, Mr. Lamola, some would say you are one of those disgruntled, bitter members of the ANC, following on your days from the ANC Youth League. Those sentiments were shared by the president of the ANC Youth League. Some were saying you are part of this contingent to bring anarchy, as they say, into the African National Congress.
I mean, I will not, I will be shocked. I mean, where have you seen a happy revolution in the world? Any revolution.
Are you bitter?
Any revolution that has happened anywhere in the world, Crisalda, has happened because people were concerned about something. And we are concerned, we are angry, we are bitter about Nkandla, we are bitter about the Constitutional Court, we are bitter about the 700 charges and all those things. So as members, that's why we are concerned. We are very angry indeed. There's never been a happy revolution. Even here in South Africa, the ANC was formed because people were angry that they were displaced from their land. They were displaced from their motherland. That's why they stood up. But you can't say these other young members are bitter. All these members who are here, you can look at them, they are concerned members of the ANC, worried, rank and file of the ANC. The only thing that we have done is to give them a platform to express their concerns and their views. So there is no struggle that will not emerge out of anger, Criselda.
Moving forward from here, once you've handed over that memorandum of demands, what is your expectation from the leadership of the ANC? You say that you failed in trying to get to their attention the list of demands that you have. How certain are you that the piece of paper which you will then hand over to one of the leaders of the ANC would get those demands addressed?
What must happen is that members of the ANC country-wise must revolt. They must demand the immediate resignation of President Zuma and the NEC.
But aren't there proper processes within the African National Congress to do that?
The proper processes have failed, Crisalda. You have seen how the Constitutional Court ruling was micromanaged. We have seen how the Gupta investigation was whitewashed. We have seen how the state capture issue was whitewashed. So those are clearly typical examples of the internal processes. And even now, I have found out that the whole RGC's processes that are happening throughout the country are a farce because people are told that we have lost elections because of weather. And we did not lose elections because of weather. We lost elections because of Jacob Zuma. They must be clear, they must be open. It's not a secret. All South Africans know it, but they are telling us about self-introspection and so. There's no need to self-introspect. We know the problem. The problem is President Jacob Zuma.
But at what point, did the ANC, in your view, reach this point where you're literally finding the ANC marching against itself?
It has reached this point when the ANC ignored its constitution, it ignores its own guidelines, it ignores all internal democratic processes. I mean, Mangaung in the Free State, comrades went to court. It was declared by the Constitutional Court that the process to the Congress was fraudulent. Comrades in KwaZulu-Natal have went to court as we speak now because they've been failed by internal processes. The recent local government elections has got a plethora of people who are still concerned even now, their dispute have not yet been resolved. So what we are calling for is the restoration of the values of the ANC, those of O.R. Tambo, of Thabo Mbeki, of Albert Lithuli, and to confirm the constitution and follow guidelines.
Mr. Ronald Lamola, they're one of the organizers of the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House campaign or protesters joining us there, certainly saying that they're still hopeful that they will be able to hand over that list of demands. Well, the understanding that we have from inside Luthuli House at this point is there's been no discussion at this stage as to who will accept that memorandum of demands from these protesters here outside. They're yet to move from the Beyers Naudé Square, where they've gathered since this morning. The understanding is that they've had discussions with the South African Police Service to try and get them towards the area where members of the MK-MVA as well as a large police contingent remain in front of the entrance of Luthuli House. As to exactly what time that will take place, I'm just going to turn towards my left here. There seems to be a briefing that is taking place here at the moment. Let me just walk towards it at the moment. Perhaps some feedback on how these protesters from the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House will proceed here this morning. And perhaps feedback from the police that they will be able to march from this point to Luthuli House. One of the organizers seems to be addressing some of the protesters here as well. It doesn't seem they've taken a resolution at all on whether to start proceeding from the Beyers Naudé Square, where they've been stationed here since this morning. And it certainly seems that, well, at this point, they seem to be moving towards the direction of Luthuli House. I do not see any of the police officers that were scheduled to accompany them move from this particular area. What certainly does seem to be a minor confrontation at this stage between some of the protesters who are charging towards the entrance, or rather towards the building at Luthuli House. There seems to be some discontent here about the way forward and how exactly these organizers, what it seems, police, it seems, will give some feedback on how the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House protesters will move forward. But what the police seem to be doing now is preventing them from moving from the area where they have been at the Beyers Naudé Square. And police at this stage are yet to give any feedback about how these protesters will proceed at this stage. So they remain at the Beyers Naudé Square. Let's hand back to you in studio for now.
Zelda, that was Priscilla Lewis live at Beyers Naudé Square, just around the corner there from the Luthuli House. And as you can see, the protesters being prevented from moving in. A question was earlier raised by one of the ANC members from the Free State as to who these people are. Well, you have the answer to that question. Ron Lamola is one of the members there joining the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House. That is the question that we also posed to you this morning. What do you make of the shenanigans happening currently at Luthuli House, and how do you view this Occupy Luthuli House protest? You can send us your comments on the hashtag, on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. But let's now go back to Renee for an update on BRICS.
Yes, thank you very much, Elvis. Now, in other news, South Africa and BRICS are pushing for better policy coordination between developed and the developing countries. This is in a bid to combat inequality and underdevelopment. The push for a new economic growth path is gaining momentum, but the gap between the rich and the poor, developed and developing nations is widening.
Hangzhou, a city dubbed Paradise on Earth. Here, the world's biggest economies are meeting. For some, it's been a long journey as they prepare to exit the world stage. For others, stepping into uncharted territory. It's about creating a new economic global order to revive the world economy.
The G20 should honor its commitment of not adopting new protectionist measures, strengthen coordination and cooperation on investment policies, take credible steps to stimulate trade growth. Infrastructure connectivity should be enhanced so as to bring developing countries and small and medium-sized companies into the global value chain and make the global economy more open and integrated.
Yet, behind the smiles, waves and handshakes, there is a silent acknowledgement of the widening economic gap and decline in the global economy. Representing Africa, President Zuma did not shy away from confronting these issues.
We welcome, in particular, the fact that China has placed development in Africa as a key priority of its G20 presidency. This strategic focus bodes well for concretizing the support that the G20 could bring to Africa's development and industrialization. Importantly, industrialization is at the heart of Africa's development agenda.
While economic talk dominates, other issues are also being discussed. Terrorism, conflict, and tensions in Europe. A smaller grouping of BRICS countries met on the sidelines. What emerged is the need for a new economic path to ensure the poor are not left behind. The message here is that while countries devise new strategies and innovations to create new growth for the global economy, they must not impose further burden on the less developed by resorting to protectionism and inward-looking policies. Mzwande Lembech, SABC News, Hangzhou, China.
Now for more on the G20 summit, let's go over to Elvis.
Now, Renee, as China assumes leadership in the grouping, Beijing wants a greater role for Africa and the developing world in the G20. When China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi spoke in Hangzhou summit in May, he made it clear that Beijing intends to cooperate with other G20 countries to deliver 10 outcomes. Now, for more on the story, in our Pretoria studios, we are joined by Dr. Emmanuel Owusu-Esukere, the Chief Research Specialist in the African Institute of South Africa Unit of the Human Sciences Research Council. Doctor, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Well, good morning to you and welcome to your viewers as well.
First and foremostly, Doctor, tell us, why is the G20 summit so important for the African continent?
Well, first of all, the G20 countries account for 85% of global GDP, 80% of international trade, and 67% of the global population. And therefore, any discussions between them in terms of the global economy and the way forward has direct implications for international economic cooperation, development, and growth. And that impacts on Africa and any other continent for that matter.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Foreign Minister Wang Yi spoke in the Hangzhou summit in May, and he said, and I quote, one of the focuses on Africa as the G20 hosts China is to initiate cooperation in support, or to support rather, industrialization of Africa and least developed countries. Now, close quote. Now that must have been a very encouraging statement there for Africa and its development.
Absolutely, you're right. A number of expected outcomes were targeted for this summit. One of them was to coordinate efforts to assist Africa's industrialization. At this juncture in Africa's development, the quest to industrialize economies is our main objective, to diversify economic structure and base from being primary commodity exporters to adding value through industrialization. And so this is a very welcoming development and one of the benefits of the continent as a whole. Another benefit closely related to this is the issue of structural reform. To be able to industrialize, we need to reallocate resources from low productivity sectors to high productivity sectors. And the summit looked at identifying priority areas, designing guiding principles, and also an index system for measuring progress over time. In terms of assisting Africa's industrialization, the aspirations do that through capacity building, targeted investments, and infrastructure development. Now, infrastructure development is very key to Africa's industrialization, and Africa's infrastructure deficit is very well documented, and it is very crucial to the continent to be able to industrialize and also link up to regional value chains and global value chains as well.
Talking about those value chains, and of course, when we talk export and import, Doctor, there was always this thing that people said there's a mismatch in terms of the equilibrium between China and the African continent, where they take our resources and we don't necessarily benefit from it. What's your take on that?
Well, there has been some concerns raised in terms of the balance of the relationship between Africa and China. Even where there is foreign direct investment from China, they come with their own workers. It's like the fund just goes back to them again. The economic relationship with Africa has been, in the past, mainly focused on economic resources in exchange for infrastructure development and other types of assistance. It's up to African leaders to decide how to rebalance that equation in the interest of the continent.
Mm-hmm. Now, South Africa is the only African country who's a member of the G20. Is that membership enough, Doctor, to represent the interests of the entire continent, or should there be more?
Well, South Africa actually does its best, as always, all the time. But you'd agree with me that it's a very tall order to represent 54 countries in addition to pursuing your own aspirations and goals as well. So what the summit usually does is that it invites additional developing countries as well. So this year Senegal was there, Egypt was there, and Chad was there as well. I'm sure the African Union was there as well, and Nepal as well, to beef up Africa's representation and also support South Africa in advocating Africa's concerns on relevant issues. Now, China being a strategic partner for Africa was also going to ensure that Africa is represented in most of the key deliberations at the summit.
And what sort of benefits, Dr. might South Africa and the rest of Africa reap if SMEs were better integrated into global and regional value chains, you think?
Well, first, if you look at the G20 countries, SMEs account for over 50% of GDP growth and roughly 75% of job creation. So the benefits are real. Within the African context, we'll probably also say that it will help to reduce poverty and mitigate our stubbornly high unemployment rates.
Doctor, I thank you so much for your time and joining us on the line there from Pretoria.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me.
Well, there you have it on the line, talking about the G20, and of course we're going to keep you updated on those stories as we continue here with President Jacob Zuma and of course a delegation of the G20 and some positive outcomes there for South Africa and even for the rest of the continent. Now, let's take a look here at home. The pre-trial court hearing of Christopher Panayiotou and his 3 co-accused has been postponed. Now, this was set to be heard in the Port Elizabeth High Court this morning. During the initial pre-trial hearing, Advocate Hanley Bakker, who represents the accused, number 2, Sizwe Zake Vumazonke, told the court that he was medically unfit to start the pre-trial hearing. Now, Panayiotou is the alleged mastermind behind the abduction and the murder of his wife, Jade, in April last year. The other 2 suspects are Sinatemba Nemembe and Zolani Sibeko. Now, back home here, Police Minister Nathi Nhleko says the country is experiencing a decrease in crime based on the latest statistics, even though crimes such as murder, attempted murder, carjacking and house break-ins showed a significant decrease. According to an economist, Dr. Raj Abedian, the executive chairman at Pan-African Capital Holdings, he says the standoff between the Hawks and the Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, will continue to make markets nervous. This as the Hawks are looking to the former Finance Minister, Nhlanhla Nene, to testify against Pravin Gordhan. And students from Lawson Brown High School in Port Elizabeth staged protests after management allegedly threatened to ban 4 learners from writing matric exams if they did not straighten their hair. It's a hair-raising situation. Future Growth Asset Management also says that it plans to only do business with state-owned enterprises with credible management and acting in the best interest of its companies. Those are some of the highlights of the week. Our social commentator, Dr. Leonard Martin, now joins us to look at the week that passed and some of the major stories that unfolded during the week and how it impacts on you and me and on us as a society. Dr. Martin, a very good morning to you. And
good morning, Elders, and good morning to the listeners.
First and foremostly, what's happening currently right now in the CBD in Johannesburg, very disturbing. The Occupy Luthuli House. What do you make of the situation there?
Well, Elders, we have to say very clearly that the situation has bypassed crisis management. We're now seeing unfolding a lot of the contradictions, both organizational, but within the context of modernizing the ANC. These contradictions can no longer be kept out of the space both of modernizing structure, accountability of structure, and all the issues that are attendant upon leadership to respond to the questions that have not been adhered to or addressed.
Now, it seems like this is internal fractures because this is ANC walking or protesting against the ANC.
Well, as one would have to say that this is beyond crisis management. There are issues of renewal of the ANC in terms of structure, renewal of leadership, which also relates to structure, and this is now publicly, it's out in the open. It's no longer a matter that can be addressed under the carpet.
Now, a story that we also talked about earlier is the latest crime statistics, which shows that the country is experiencing a decrease in crime, even though contact crimes have escalated. Thoughts?
Well, first of all, contact crimes have to do directly with social issues. Issues of access to the basics. Otherwise, you would not be able to define contact crime. Then, of course, there's contact crimes relating to domestic issues in the home. But all these have a bearing on the social issues of access to resources. So we are likely to experience more of the same. And the question is whether we can really talk about an absolute decline, whether there isn't just a dip in relation to the other crimes. Because if we look at it holistically, all these crimes are somehow interlinked to resources, to issues of dignity, to issues of employment, etc., etc.
Now, do you concur with the view by economists that poor political leadership and infighting within the ANC and the standoff with the finance minister, Pravin Gordhan, will continue to make the markets nervous? They say it will make them very nervous.
Well, South Africa has been normalized into the global structure after apartheid. We've been normalized to such an extent that whatever the political leadership does in terms of policy or absence of policy would make the markets nervous. So it's a normal situation where the leadership appears to be losing control, to not being able to speak coherently, not to cohere in terms of policy, would make the markets nervous.
I'm talking about policy. The Mineral Resources Minister, Mosebenzi Zwane, speaking out of turn.
Well, those are the issues that the markets would be very concerned about. How authorized is this person to make the type of statements where almost single-handedly launching an investigation into the banks, how that investigation be conducted without having a direct impact on the function of the economy? These are basic and very, very serious issues.
And one of those direct effects that we can see was Future Growth Asset Managers who decided to stop lending money to state-owned enterprises because they think it is too risky. But let's move on because we haven't got much time. Very social, a very important story and a hair-raising story. The schoolgirls that is protesting against wearing their natural hair.
Well, I think, Elvis, many of us are literally shocked that you can have 16th, 17th century articulations in relation to image, the profiling of black people, being, covered up in so-called school, so-called regulations. Even the language that girls have to straighten their hair. If you go back to what's called biological racism, this is very much alive in our educational culture. And this is the outrage. It goes beyond parents perhaps not understanding, what is happening in these schools. But the point is we have a living culture of biological racism alive and well under the cover of policy in our schools.
And then finally, Doctor, anything else that stood out for you during the course of this week besides the hair-raising issue?
Well, there's been a survey done in terms of racism in South Africa. And it's been brought directly to our doorstep that, in effect, we have been tinkering around with racialism in this country. There's disturbing trends in relation to issues of ethnicity, how different these issues are from being a race. All these issues lead us back to the question of whether we, in fact, after 1994, have addressed racism and its potential for being manifested in our relations in South Africa. These matters cannot no longer be left off the agenda.
Dr. Martin, as usual, thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studios.
Thank you very much.
Uncoiling, unkinking the matters of the week that was plaguing our society. Dr. Martin is a social commentator. He joins us on our weekly slot looking at the major stories that unfolded during the week that passed and how that impacts on you and me. Right now, let's get some sports news from Kendall Makamate.
Good morning, welcome back. Thank you very much, Elvis. Top story for today is about the US Open, where four-seeded Spaniard Rafael Nadal suffered a surprise loss to Luca Pouille of France in an epic 4-hour clash at the US Open in New York. Pouille beat the 14-time Grand Slam winner in 5 sets to advance to his second quarterfinal in a major.
The encounter between one of tennis's golden sons and the flamboyant Frenchman was a typical seesaw affair. Pouille won the first and third sets, Nadal the second and fourth, in a straightforward my turn, your turn game of tennis. There was, however, drama in the fifth, as Pouille recovered from a breakdown to take the set to the tiebreak. He then finally converted his fourth match point to win the tiebreak 8-6 and claimed the biggest win of his career.
Luca Pui has done the unthinkable in taking out his first ever top 5 opponent, and it is two-time U.S. Open champion Rafael Nadal that is his victim.
At this time I was okay, he will have to save a match point. I couldn't believe he would miss it, but you know, he's like every player, he feels the pressure as well, so even if he's one of the best, he feels the pressure, and it's a tough one to make at this time. And then when he missed it, of course, I was very happy.
I fight until the end. There's things that I could do better, but had the right attitude. I fight it until the last ball. But I need something else. I need something more. That was not there today.
Top seed Novak Djokovic, however, raced past unseeded Brit Kyle Edmund. The Serb, who hasn't enjoyed much on-court action this week, recorded a 6-2, 6-1, 6-4 victory in just under 2 hours. In the women's draw, second-seeded German Angelique Kerber triumphed over Petra Kvitova in the battle of the Grand Slam champions. The 14th-seeded Czech double faltered on match point to hand Kerber a 6-3, 7-5 win. The victory means that world number 1 Serena Williams will have to reach the final to have a chance of retaining her top spot. And former world number 1 Caroline Wozniacki of Denmark upset 8th-seeded American Madison Keys. Wozniacki needed 80 minutes to book her place in the last 8 with a straight sets win. Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
Now, after Friday's 2017 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier against Mauritania, Bafana are playing continental giants Egypt in the Nelson Mandela Challenge tomorrow evening. The match will also serve as preparation for the 2018 FIFA World Cup qualifiers that start next month.
The sooner Bafana forget about their dismal AFCON campaign, the better. Bafana finished third in Group M after Friday's 1-1 draw with Mauritania. In as much as the team's defense is leaking, the striking force is also struggling to find the back of the net.
We're building up very well from the back, up to the opposition's defending third. That's where we're getting problems of finishing up. But what else can we do? If you look at the top goal scorers in our league, it's all foreign-based players, and we're not talking about it.
Are we going to see any improvements in the Nelson Mandela Challenge match in Soweto?
The Egypt game, it's another game. Highly tactical team that we're going to play against. I think we will just change here and there and look at what approach can we apply in that.
After failing to qualify for AFCON, Bafana will now focus on the 2018 World Cup qualifiers, and the coach is adamant the team will go to Russia.
The way the boys are playing, I don't doubt that we'll qualify for the World Cup.
New Orlando Pirates signee Abubakar Mubara was the talk of the town after containing Brazil's Neymar at the Olympics in Rio early last month. On Friday, he won the Man of the Match award.
For me, it's just to keep calm, like I said, to play football. I'm not here to talk about a lot of things. You know, I can only play football. I'm not good in talking and knowing about what I want, but I know where I'm heading. You know, I know what I want to become one day. I know what I love to do, and to play football.
Mubara plays either at right back or central midfield. But what is his preferred position?
No comment.
The Nelson Mandela Challenge match between Bafana and Egypt will be at Orlando Stadium on Tuesday evening. Mduduzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
You know, as far as new groundbreaking sports go, trail running is one of the new kids on the block, allowing runners the chance to take in breathtaking views while navigating some of the more interesting and complicated running routes in nature. Nina Durieux, Rock Rapids' trail run is one such race. She's here with us again this morning. She's the CEO of let me see if I can get it right, and I'll tell you now. CEO of Road Less Traveled, My Road Less Traveled,
Yeah.
and we've also got Tabang Madiba, who's also a runner deluxe himself. So thanks very much for bringing the cavalry, if I could say, to chat a little bit about trail running itself.
Pleasure.
Nina, the last time that we spoke, there was quite a few things that were going on, and since then you've had a few races under your belt.
Yes, we had the Land Rover Buster Bunny, which was our stage race, and Tabang came third overall in that stage race. And then we had part of our rabbit series, Scrub Hare, and now we've got Rock Rabbit, the final of the series, coming up.
No, very good. Tabang, we're going to come through to you because it's the very first time we chat to you, and I think it would be good to get an idea of who you are. Just before we came out, I had a chat and wanted to find out, how do I super you? What do I call you? And found out that you've just won out in Madagascar.
Yes.
You also are the reigning Africa trail running champion, but you said I should say you're the sky running champion. Why is that?
Sky running is anything above 2,000 meters above sea level. Then you scramble, you run. So they were held in Mauritius last year. So in Africa, I was first and came in second behind former world champ Ricky Lightfoot from Great Britain.
Okay, so basically the thing that stands out about that race is that it's at high altitude, ultra high altitude. I mean,
Yes.
2,000 meters above sea level. That's higher than Table Mountain, isn't it?
Yes, it's higher than Table Mountain. Some of them, they even go over 3,000 meters to 4,000 meters.
Wow, and that's exactly why I wanted us to talk about that. Okay, no, I get it. I get it. Right now we've got some photographs of you, Nina, out on the trail. Is this the Rock Rabbit Trail?
This is the Rock Rabbit Trail, yes.
All right, so did you find, is it exactly the same as what you've done before, or have you found different routes to take the participants on?
We have extended a little bit from last year's trail, but it's about an 800 meter that we've changed. But otherwise, it's the same as last year. So there's a lovely mountain that they go up, and it's nice and rocky and technical. Lots of undulating ascents and descents. Yeah.
All right, so basically that is what you do to sort out your trail. You actually go out on the trail yourself, check it out. You've got a photographer that went with you.
Yes.
Do you take a medical team with you?
No.
Do you time yourself to figure out?
Yeah, I do time myself, and I take a basic first aid kit, but I don't take a medical team out. That we do have on race day. We have medics available if anything happens.
Have you been in one of these recces before, Tabang, or do you actually only find out once you go on race day and you start running?
No, she's been invited me since last year. Then I managed to do some of her races as my preparation for some big races because of the technicality, down runs, steep up runs, and like at some point you just run through the bushes. So that's what I love.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
so there is something about Nina's races that stands out. What, the technical aspect is
Yep.
quite tough?
Yeah, it is. It is super technical, 100%.
All right. So now, in terms of that's actually very interesting to hear, because I would have had nothing to compare it to, and I'm really glad that Tabang is here to give us a perspective of where your races feature. In terms of like when you won at the Madagascar race, which you just came back from, how long was that race?
It was 150 Ks in 6 days.
150 Ks in 6 days?
Yes.
So what are you trying to do? Are you doing a stage race like we do with the cycling across Europe and that kind of thing?
Yeah, we did the same, but then we were camping at different places. We had to like run 20 Ks, camp at the other side. Then the furthest distance, it was a marathon.
All right.
Yeah.
So now with the Rock Rabbit Trail, how long is that?
The longest is 20 Ks,
Yeah.
and then we've got a 14K and a 5K. So we try and cater to all different levels of fitness.
But this is over a couple of days as well?
No, that's
All right.
over one day.
Just over the one day?
That's over one day. So
Okay.
the 20 Ks is more of a challenge for the elite runners and for those that want to challenge themselves. Our 14 Ks are kind of an in-between, but we push the 14 Ks up a bit. They need to have a sting in the tail.
Yes.
And then the 5K is for a novice runner. For kids, I'm trying to open the market more to kids running these trails.
All right, now I've got a last question, and I've been told that I need to wrap it up, but I need to ask this very last question, and please be as quick about it as you can. Tabang, here's a question. In terms of trail running and what you've seen since you started, because you started some time back,
Yeah.
have you seen a difference in the kind of runners that are running with you? Is there a general uptake of younger, newer, different-bodied people running with you?
Honestly, it was very young, but now it's growing big because of we have more of race organizers. So especially road runners, because we have good road runners, but when they come to trail running, they perform much better, and they get the opportunity to represent the country also.
Very good. Okay, now thanks very much for that. 11th of September is the next Rock Rabbit.
Yes, and entries at www.myroadlesstraveled.co.za.
There you go. Nia Durio and Tabang, I keep getting your name wrong. Tabang Madiba, who's a trail runner deluxe. That's where we leave it with the sport. I have totally run out of time, and I know Elvis is standing by to close off the show.
Thank you, Kendall. We're not closing as yet because it's happening in the CBD at Luthuli House. Let's go there live to find out what's the latest from Eldrin St. Pierre. Well, it seems like we haven't got him yet, but if you can look at the visuals there, that's happening. People are streaming down the road there. I don't know in which direction they're going right now, but it seems that it's in the vicinity of Luthuli House. As you know, that some of the protesters were at the Beyers Naudé Park on the other side, so they're probably moving across or around now to Luthuli House, and we await with bated breath. We believe that they're on their way to drop off the memorandum. Let's go to Eldrin to find out what's the latest. Eldrin?
Well, these are live visuals coming from outside Luthuli House. We are expecting the Secretary General of the ANC, Gwede Mantashe, to accept the memorandum of demand from the Occupy Luthuli House organizers. There you have him, Gwede Mantashe, standing alongside Kebi Mapata, who is the chairperson of the Mkhonto Wesizwe Military Veterans Association. And what I can tell you actually now is that the MKMVA members are refusing to allow Gwede Mantashe to walk across to the other side where the Occupy Luthuli House supporters are standing at. They're expecting to hand over the memorandum to Gwede Mantashe. The MKMVA members are saying that having Gwede Mantashe walk across to those people will be giving them some sort of legitimacy that the organization is being recognized by the ANC, and there's a refusal, as you can see right here, the standoff in the middle of the street, as they are refusing to allow Gwede Mantashe through to go and accept that memorandum of demand. Well, live visuals coming from outside Luthuli House, where the Mkhonto Wesizwe Military Veterans Association members are blocking the Secretary General of the ANC, Gwede Mantashe, from accepting the memorandum of demand. But as you can see, there is that push to try and to convince them to allow Gwede Mantashe through so that he can accept that memorandum of demands from the Occupy Luthuli House movement. Well, earlier on, actually, we were speaking to the ANC, and they've indicated that they weren't told that there will be a memorandum of demand. This was something that just came out, that came late, and they've now made this arrangement to allow Gwede Mantashe through to come and accept this memorandum of demand. What will exactly happen after that memorandum of demand is handed over, we'll have to wait and see, because some of the things that they are calling for is for President Jacob Zuma to resign, and they want the entire leadership of the ANC, including Gwede Mantashe, who's part of the top 6, to resign. They are saying it's because of the poor leadership that the party failed at the elections, that the party didn't get as many votes as it did the last time. Remember that the ANC support in the elections dropped by more than 8% compared to 2011 during the last elections, and quite interesting as well is what we have to note is that the metro that we're standing in currently, the Joburg municipality, this is a metro that the DA is now in charge of, because we know that the ANC didn't get an outright majority here in the city of Joburg, and now it is being led by the DA, of course, with support from other small parties. Actually, just a few meters away from where we're standing, that's actually when that voting process took place at the Johannesburg Hall, where they voted in Herman Mashaba as the mayor of the city of Joburg. Well, we continue with our coverage of this protest that has been organized by disgruntled ANC members and supporters as well, who are saying that they are sick and tired of the leadership, the current leadership of the ANC. And Griselda, earlier on you spoke to Ronald Lamula, who's also part of the organizers of Occupy Luthuli House.
Yes, I did, Aldrin, and he did indicate that they'd been in talks with the ANC to ensure that the SG does come and accept this memorandum. Whether that's going to happen at this stage certainly remains to be seen, because the pushing and the discontent amongst the ANC members at this point is quite hectic. We see the ANC SG moving towards that group at the moment, being pushed by members of the MK MVA. A lot of discontent amongst these members, of course, as some of them do not want the Secretary General to accept that memorandum. And at this stage, we're expecting the SG to address the members of the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House marches. Certainly remains to be seen how interesting what he will say to these members about some of the concerns they are raising. You can see the tussle here between the MKMVA, who are also pushing members of the South African Police Service, who are lining this area at the moment. The SG seems to be moving towards those marches at the moment. We're expecting him to accept that memorandum of demands any minute now, and address, of course, the handful of those members who are here, of course, to put forward their grievances. Of course, amongst them calling for President Jacob Zuma to resign, the NEC as well to resign, the National Executive Committee, as well as that Fees Commission to be disbanded. We'll move a bit closer just to that at the moment, just to hear what the Secretary General of the ANC will say to these members here. A lot of discontent continues, as some of the ANC members are saying it's not necessary for Gwede Mantashe to address these party members who some have labelled as disgruntled.
Say that it's quite strange that this is happening, where you have a situation where Gwede Mantashe actually has to force his way through members of the Mkhonto Wesizwe Military Veterans Association to accept this memorandum of demand. The ANC has been emphasizing, say that we have internal mechanisms. There are internal structures where people should be raising their issues. They must not raise their issues through these marches, through these protests and so forth. And now you have a situation where Gwede Mantashe will be accepting this memorandum of demands. And as I was saying, what will happen to that memorandum of demand is something that we'll have to wait and see. We spoke earlier on to the president of the ANC Youth League, Colin Minor, earlier on, who said that President Jacob Zuma will remain the president of the ANC up until 2017. That's when the elective conference of the ANC will be taking place. That is, it will be happening in December, of course. It's the only time that President Jacob Zuma will be stepping down. No one will be resigning, and they indicated that they are quite happy with the leadership they're quite happy with the leadership of the ANC. But of course, these members and supporters of Occupy Luthuli House certainly are not happy. Just a quick word to our viewers. We'd like to apologize for all the strong language that you're hearing coming through. You can understand how tense it is. And this is, of course, a live coverage from outside Luthuli House, where the memorandum of demand will be handed over to the Mkhonto to Gwede Mantashe.
Well, certainly many of the MKMVA members calling for calm here, as they're trying to get the actual proceedings underway here, where the Secretary General, of course, would need to accept that memorandum of demands there. And as my colleague Aldrin St. Pierre was pointing out, that perhaps to accept that memorandum of demands would mean, of course, the ANC would need to discuss some of these concerns by its members and find a possible solution. Because earlier when we were speaking to members of the ANC, they indicated that while they acknowledge there are challenges within the African National Congress, certainly these challenges are challenges that need to be addressed internally within the African National Congress. However, while they cannot certainly condone the behavior, they say, of some of these members, the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House members, they would certainly need then to address the many concerns which they raise. We are currently being pushed back at this phase, where we're expecting in the next few minutes here the ANC's Gwede Mantashe, of course, to accept that memorandum. We're just going to try and push through this crowd here at the moment. Quite difficult. We must also apologize. Perhaps we see Ronald Lamola there being pushed towards some of the MK-MVA. Okay, some of the members of the Occupy Luthuli House protesters are now being charged towards another direction. I see Ronald Lamola there being pushed towards that direction. Mr. Lamola, if we can just have a very brief word with you. Just tell us exactly what is taking place. Are you being pushed away from that area?
We have submitted the memorandum. The SG has accepted it, and we appreciate that the ANC has taken, we have delivered the message we wanted to deliver, and we believe that structures across the country will going to engage. They are going to be engaged in a process to renew the ANC. And that's why we're here. We have risked our life, we have risked everything that we have as young people. Others have risked employment, others have risked business opportunities and so forth, but it's good for the future of the country. And these young people will one day stand as the defenders of the real values of the ANC and the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. They came here despite all kinds of threats, all kinds of intimidation. They deliver the message. They don't want a lot of things. They just say restore the values of the ANC. Let the ANC be what we used to know it when we were growing up, hearing on the news about O.R. Tambo, about Albert Luthuli, and many other leaders of the ANC. This is what they are crying for. They are just crying for leadership.
Are you giving the ANC leadership a particular amount of time to respond to those demands?
We did not give a clear time frame because we believe it should be an ongoing process and we'll attend to it.
Right, thank you very much there, Mr. Ronald Lamola, who is saying they're quite satisfied that they have now handed over that memorandum of demands to the ANC. Of course, they'd be hoping for some kind of feedback. No specific time frame that has been given at this point for those demands to be responded to. We saw the ANC's SG move back towards the direction towards Luthuli House there. Certainly, while these members or these protesters of the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House are now saying that they've achieved their goal. They wanted to hand over that list of demands, and certainly that has now taken place. A massive police contingent, of course, remains here at this time. You can see the supporters of the ANC who are bussed in here as well from Mpumalanga, as well as the Free State, who were saying a bit earlier on they did not want the Secretary General to come and receive this memorandum of demand, saying that those who are protesting against the very movement which they belong to do not deserve to be in the party itself. So the visuals that you are seeing now live on your screen are of the supporters who came here to what they call defend Luthuli House, and many of those who are participating in the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House have now left under heavy police guard at the Beyers-Naudé Square here, where the ANC's Secretary General had received that memorandum of demands. Just to bring you up to speed, in case you're joining us right now, is that memorandum, of course, includes that President Jacob Zuma resign, as well as the National Executive Committee and the disbanding of that Fees Commission. You'll of course recall it had been a very contentious issue with regard to the university fees in South Africa, a major bone of contention, I must say, in the run-up as well to the recent local government elections. And certainly this group would be wanting the ANC to really respond to its demands. What you're seeing now also, the large police presence remains, this line of police officers making sure that a sense of normality does return here to the Johannesburg CBD, as many of these ANC supporters are now marching through the streets here near the Beyers Naudé Square. If you just missed it, the Secretary General of the ANC has just accepted that memorandum of demands from the hashtag Occupy Luthuli House. They're now marching towards Beyers Naudé Square at the moment, and essentially saying that they will continue to defend the ANC and, of course, defend what they're saying is their president, who should remain in power until the next election. They're going to protest now throughout the streets of the Johannesburg CBD at the moment. Police certainly have their hands full. As you can see, they're running towards the protesters to make sure that they don't disrupt the traffic in the Johannesburg CBD, and really unsuccessfully at this point trying to move some of the crowds back to ensure that they remain within this area here at the Beyers Naudé Square, and they're trying to form a human shield there, as you can see. That human shield, of course, trying to keep those protesters away from certain sections of the Johannesburg CBD.
Right, as you can see, we've got live coverage coming to you right there from the CBD, downtown Johannesburg, where Griselda Lewis has been giving us blow by blow what's happening at the Occupy Luthuli House event. The memorandum has been handed over, and it remains to be seen what happens with it from now on. We take a short break. When we come back, we've got news for you.